party going up in smoke. Hey, hey, let's all get gay, the stuff is here. Everybody just pass your glass, hold the jug but not too fast. Hey, hey, let's all get gay, the stuff is here. Mr. Piano Man, sit down upon that stool. If you need a helping hand, you'll be rewarded. Don't you feel like a doggone fool? Close the windows and lock the door. Take the rug up off the floor. Hey, hey, let's all get gay, the stuff is here.
Yippee-yay! From Studio 401, it's the Stranger Than Fiction News right here on The Fringe FM. I'm Vance Nesbitt, and here's our headlines. Federal employee startled by a flying creature living in Mississippi State. Tate County, Mississippi. A woman says that an unidentified bipedal flying creature standing by a window outside her house startled her during a storm in northwest Mississippi, and that she photographed a series of footprints she believes belongs to the being. Marie, a 51-year-old woman who claims to work for the federal government, told Cryptozoology News that she was sleeping on the couch in the living room when the sighting occurred. Quote, "It was around 11 p.m. The storm had knocked out the power from 8:30 p.m. until about 1:30 in the morning," she said. "I literally saw and felt a shadow cover the window that was blacker than black inside and outside the house. It startled me so badly that I immediately grabbed for a flashlight." The creature, the federal employee states, was large and could fly. She says she believes it was a Mothman-like creature, but known by locals as Swift Peter. The following day, Marie and her family discovered a set of 7-toed footprints they think could be evidence of the flying visitor. She says that she is very familiar with the local wildlife and that she wasn't able to match the tracks with any known animal. Source cryptozoologynews.com. And most of the meat people will be eating by the year 2040 will not come from slaughtered animals, according to a report that predicts 60% will either be grown in vats or replaced by plant-based products that look and taste like meat. The report by the global consultancy A.T. Kearney, based on expert interviews, highlights the heavy environmental impacts of conventional meat production and concerns people have about the welfare of animals under industrial farming. Source, The Guardian. And a huge shaggy head of a 30,000-year-old wolf was unearthed in Siberia. A well-preserved head belonging to an ancient species of wolf has been pulled from the permafrost of northeastern Siberia. The enormous, well-preserved head could yield important genetic information about the evolutionary history of wolves and the origin of domesticated dogs. A local resident living in northern Siberia discovered the disembodied head in melting permafrost during the summer of 2018. The Siberian Times reported the discovery was made public at a National Museum of Emerging Science and Innovation in Tokyo, Japan, during the grand opening of its mammoth exhibit. Source, Gizmodo.com. And without further ado, here's an interesting fun fact. Title 14, Section 1211 of the Code of Federal Regulations that was implemented on July 16th of 1969 makes it illegal for U.S. citizens to have any contact with extraterrestrials or their vehicles. Thanks for listening to the Stranger Than Fiction News right here on the Fringe FM. Again, I'm Vance Nesbitt, news anchor and sorcerer.
Message is being broadcast by the Department of Defense of the Republic. At 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, multiple unidentified objects were confirmed to have entered Earth's atmosphere.
Discovery Houston, 20 seconds to LOS T-Drift.
Contact, nice to be in orbit. The first message that comes to you is you are a divine being. You matter. You count. You come from realms of unimaginable power and light, and you will return to those realms.
The vast stretches of the unknown and the unanswered and the unfinished still far outstrip our collective comprehension.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting from Forest Tower Studios, all the way from the Deep South. Now, here is your host, Joe Root.
Broadcasting on top of a hill from a radio shack on top of a hill in the Mossy Creek bottoms of Cane Creek, Arkansas. I'm Joe Roop, and this is Lighting the Void. Thank you for joining us tonight on the broadcast. We are live on the Fringe FM, and if you were just listening to J.D. Lewis, that was a fantastic show. Real Talk with J.D. Lewis, who's just now on the Fringe FM Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific. I have no idea how I'm supposed to follow that, because that's what a radio show is supposed to sound like. So you can tell that that's kind of what I've been striving for here, to get that kind of sound. But it helps when you do it out of a professional radio studio. But anyways, go check out the show. The archives will be up very soon, and they'll be available to you anywhere and everywhere, just about. And yeah, I was very, very impressed. That was such a great show. And I want to welcome her to the team, welcome her to the Fringe FM family, and I hope you will all do the same, because we need somebody like that. We need somebody that can get down in the roots of all this stuff. Because me, you know me, when I get on here, I just rant and ramble about stuff that's on my mind. I'm not a very good researcher. What is it, journalist? You know, we need those kind of people, but I wouldn't consider myself a journalist. And we need more. You know what? I was just having this discussion, actually, with somebody on Facebook Messenger, which is my least favorite place to talk to people. If you want to hang out and talk to me, the best place to do it's in the Fringe FM chat. I keep that up 24/7. But I think we need more people to shake things up, to shake the late night up radio up. We need more people that are willing to say things like it is and talk about what's on their mind, and not be so politically correct or so safe all the time. We need more of that, and we need more of it in the mainstream radio. And so, yeah, that's exactly what we're getting now. And then we need more of it on the Fringe FM, too. Tonight, I will have the phones open, because some of you, I think, may have these experiences that we're going to be discussing. It's the first time that we've ever discussed this on the show, and it's people that have paranormal trauma, and that's what we're going to be discussing tonight. And I really didn't kind of know about this. So Barbara Charlton's going to be on here with us, and she's been a listener of the show, but I had no clue for the longest time that she was doing this, that she's a certified EFT practitioner. I didn't know that, and we're going to get into that as well. But when I talked to Guy, I did realize that some people, not only do they have weird and crazy experiences in their life that are unexplained, but they also get traumatized from it. You know, and not to mention, when they get traumatized from it, it's one thing to come on the radio and talk about it, but it's another thing when you have to live your life with it. And so I imagine that maybe some of you out there may be going through some of these things. But Barbara's with us tonight, and she decided against becoming a dentist after working for her father as a teenager. Instead, she carved out a successful career in big-ticket IT sales and program management, followed by an equally great running at selling residential real estate. But despite all that, she longed to find her passion and purpose. And so she entered the EFT field, which means the emotional freedom techniques, or tapping, quote, tapping. At its core, EFT is a self-help tool, but when something is really buried or it's painful, it's best to work with a guide, and that's where people turn to Barbara. Stuck in emotions can cast shadows on us for decades and throughout our past and childhood, but left unaddressed, those emotional scars often turn into physical illness, and so she coaches them through healing their responses to negative life events. It's freedom, literally kind of like emotional freedom. And as a lifelong student of the unexplained, one day Barb suddenly realized that people who live through terrifying paranormal events often feel there's nowhere to go for help. And you can really hear it when they tell their stories, too. Their voices crack, their hearts race, and just talking about it triggers them. The fight or flight thing comes up. Oftentimes, family and friends will make fun of you or just shut you down or, give you the palm in the face, right? They don't want to hear it. Doesn't make sense to them. So getting real conventional help could be an issue. And so I think most of us, and we talked about this last night, they get, quote, labeled as somebody who sees things that aren't there. And so they live with it and suffer in silence. So helping the paranormal witness is one of the two pro bono categories that she works on. Now she's also a principal of Metaphorical Archaeology, LLC. And she's a certified EFT practitioner, a member of the Association for Comprehensive Energy Psychology, and a member of the Energy Medicine Professional Association. Hey, Barbara, it's good to talk to you finally on the show. It's been a long time coming.
It has. Thanks for having me, Joe.
Yeah, I don't know if, it's kind of synchronicity that this happened. Because when we booked these shows, when Patrick booked these shows, we booked them in a way that we didn't really know who was going to be what. We just were feeling guests to talk about certain subjects, at least for the first month. And then we're going to talk about subjects and then sprinkle it with guests. But it really kind of lined up. After everything we've talked about this week, this is kind of like the perfect thing to discuss, that people really go through crazy, harmful, I would say harmful, but crazy experiences in their life that they can't talk to anybody about, and it causes trauma in their life.
It's really true. I mean, last night when you were talking to Guy, I wasn't yelling at the radio, but I was going, yes, this is exactly what I see and hear all the time. I hear people being interviewed. They've seen a dog man, and you can hear it. You can hear the pain. They say, you can't exactly talk to your doctor about this, so you live with it. And they move out of their homes, or they can't go hiking anymore. It changes their whole life. They have PTSD in a lot of cases.
Yeah, and you can't. I could hear it, and I could hear it in Guy's voice too. And honestly, I didn't feel that way when I first had him on. I never talked to the guy, didn't know who he was. I saw the video, and everybody was. By the way, everybody's asking about that video I was referencing, and I apologize that I didn't reference it correctly. On Guy McCourt's YouTube channel, it's the very first video is the one I was talking about on his YouTube channel. But anyways, yeah, you could hear it in his voice how he was talking about his family and his dad and his sister. And there's some social anxieties I believe that happen with people too, where they can't really have friends. And you heard him bring that up too as well. Like, I don't have any friends, right? I don't keep a lot of friends because of these things. So yeah, it just didn't sound fun at all to me.
Well, he kind of identified, didn't he say he felt like the weird kid, and it just kind of kept going? I mean, that you label yourself that way. So how do you get out of that, right? If you leave things that are stuck and really traumatic, they can turn into an illness, and your body's really literal. So depending on what the issue was, you can end up with a surprisingly synchronous corresponding illness or condition.
Now, I've got this theory, and I'm sure you've heard me talk about it, that there's something out there. I don't know what it is, but it's not very friendly. In fact, it's probably very malevolent, and my feeling, that goes after children. Do you see this happening to children a lot, like mainly?
I don't hear it a lot from kids, but I think their parents protect them. I have a mentor. I've got a couple of really great mentors, and I'm sort of halfway down the middle of, scientifically studied and a little bit of woo-woo.
Right.
And my woo-woo mentor, his team would get called in. Remember a couple of years ago, that movie where the kids were seeing the Charlie? They would invoke that. They would do what they saw in the movie. Well, that was a real incantation. And so school districts here north of Dallas had Chuck's team on call because weird stuff would start happening in the house. And they would come in and say, do you have a middle schooler? And they would explain this is what happened. The pencil really did spin. You weren't imagining that. And everyone was freaked out. So the school got help for those kids. But the first thing they had to do was clear the house. I don't do the clearing of the house. I do the clearing of the people.
Yeah. And then it gets kind of brushed under the rug, right? Like it gets brushed under the rug. People don't talk about it anymore. And yet other people are still dealing with it. And I wonder how bad the trauma gets sometimes, though. Does it get, like, if I had what Guy was talking about, where I had to worry about being haunted every day and stuff lifting me out of bed and scratching me and stuff, I would go insane. There's no doubt about it. I feel like in my mind, I would go crazy. I wouldn't be able to handle it. And he seemed to be, I guess you adapt to it, but he seemed to be, like he said, he gets used to it. But I don't know. Do we really get used to these kinds of things, Barbara?
I don't think I was trying to figure that out myself, because I think you had Daniel Oman on some time ago, none of that seemed to rattle him in the least. But with Guy, it seems like maybe whatever is there is escalating just to see if it can provoke him to a new level. Like, yeah, go ahead, write your book, stay in the house, we'll see what happens. That's got to get under your skin.
Yeah, I think what was unbelievably odd about it, too, and what was the most creepiest about the story was he said that he feels drawn to the house, almost like that he's attached to the stuff that's happening because he's so used to it. I don't know. That was a really creepy thing.
Have you ever heard that people are haunted?
Yeah. Do you mean like targeted individuals, or do you mean?
Well, they say that you hear that houses are haunted, or that's a haunted house, but a lot of times it seems like sometimes people are haunted, and I don't mean possessed. I mean they've got maybe like a little attachment to them, and wherever they go, stuff seems to happen around them. So I couldn't tell from what he was talking about if it was a little bit of both, but he did seem really attached to that house. I'd be out of there. I'm sorry. Yeah. all my paranormal things have been really fun and lighthearted and, positive and family, but that kind of stuff, no.
Well, I mean, you haven't had any type of weird haunting experiences, right? You don't seem like the type of person that would get into these kind of things because you had a haunting. So did something happen to you to get you involved with this?
Well, I started listening last year. I somehow tripped over some of those Dogman shows, and I reached out to you after I heard that, and I said, I'd like to meet researchers who are not just in it to do a TV show. They want their hours of fame, but people who really are working with those people who have been traumatized and need help and don't know where to turn. And I reached out to you because of all the people that you hear on the airwaves. You're intellectually honest and you're a straight shooter. I figured you would tell me, steer clear of this one, or, that's a good person to speak with. But it would make me nuts listening to, oh, that's too bad. And he would the one guy in particular would re-traumatize people. Well, what happens is if you go through talk therapy and get re-traumatized and they open that up, you have like a 4 to 6 hour window where you can clear that. If you don't, all you are doing to those people is strengthening the neural network where that situation is stored in the brain. So you are making it stronger and worse for them each time they tell that story.
So
that's wrong.
Well, now I'm starting to feel bad, because are you telling me, like, when I have somebody on the radio, and it's okay if you're right, but I really want to know. So, like, if I have somebody on the radio show and I want them to tell the experience that they went through, and does it makes the trauma worse? You say, like, I guess it makes it worse. Does it make it worse in their head and in their life when they have to retell it?
I don't see. I've been listening to you for a while, Joe, and I don't listen at night because I'm never up at this hour.
Well, you are now. Welcome to the late night.
Yeah, I am now back to my teenage years. No, you don't come at it that way, but there are a number of shows out there where it's fairly gratuitous. They bring the people on and they get them spun up and then they send them off, and they'll say, well, I'm sure you feel better now that you talked about it. Well, there is some relief in maybe them getting it off their chest for the first time, but they're not going anywhere else with it. And I don't hear you approaching it from that angle ever.
Yeah, I've always wondered why, like Travis Walton too, as well, when he had his abduction experience, that they had such a hard time getting him to talk about it, and he didn't remember it, what was going on or what happened, and he had to go into hypnosis. And because I always thought maybe, if that happened to me, I would just tell everybody. I'd be like, the most amazing thing, but I'd never really thought about the trauma. I never really realized just how how freakishly scary these things can be sometimes. And I think we forget about that.
Well, our subconscious, the number one job is to keep us safe, right? So if you've been under something that traumatic, when they don't remember it, your brain has shut that down just because you can't handle it. So I really like the work that Lori McDonald does, where she works with people. She's got the support group for people who have been abducted and gone through those experiences. And she helps them bring it out and reintegrate it and get them through it, because it did happen to them. And just shutting the door on it, my favorite saying is, you might shut the door on it, but the room is still on fire. So somehow you have to deal with it. Now, I don't know how he did either. I mean, I heard Calvin speak in Eureka Springs a couple months ago.
Calvin Parker?
And yeah. And he was just, he goes, I don't remember this part of it, but, this is my story. And you can tell this guy didn't do public speaking before, but now he was sharing what he thought was helpful for other people. He came from a really good place about it, I think.
Yeah. And I really think he's telling the truth, too. And I
do, too. You can feel it.
I think when we go out as well, too, and we tell other people that they're frauds and liars and all this stuff, I mean, it's good to check facts. I really believe that. I think it's good to check to make sure, we're not being lied to, that somebody's story is real. But you got to think about how you might be traumatizing somebody if they're being honest, if they're being real, and you're just badgering them, especially out in public or over the air or whatever, and calling them a fraud. It makes it worse. I think it makes them crazy. And I often wonder sometimes how many people end up in the psych ward just because they had a paranormal experience. And I've been thinking about this a lot lately. And they tried to share it with people. They tried to talk about it, and they got made fun of or called a fraud, and they ended up with some way worse psychological problems than they had before, because now their social life is screwed up.
Well, and look at the people that are usually attacking them. They're coming from a place of fear. Number one, they don't want it to be true, because if it could happen to them, it could happen to the person attacking them. But they do the same thing to little kids. When little kids are being abused or molested, and they come and tell mom or dad, and they don't want to believe that, because if they do believe it, they have to change something in their lives. So they don't want it to be true. No, go away. That didn't happen. Well, that's not healthy either.
Yeah, for sure. I'm totally with you on that. So tell me about this EFT. Explain this to me, because I don't quite understand what this tapping technique is. I'm very curious about it.
Well, it was discovered by a psychologist named Roger Callahan. I want to say in the 80s. I might be wrong about that. But he was a psychologist and conventional, and he was working with a woman he called Mary, who was extremely water phobic. She couldn't even take a bath in an inch or two of water in the bathtub. So he was at his wit's end. He tried everything he could, and he was reading about different acupressure points. And the one under the eye, which is like right on your cheekbone, directly under your pupil, that's not attached, but the meridian runs through your solar plexus. That's basically usually where fear shows up. Like when you get really afraid of something, most people will get like a coldness, or their solar plexus will clutch. So he said, just think about how afraid you are of the water and just tap there. And she did. And it's like, how'd that go? She goes, I don't know. She went home, came back the next day, and ran through his home office, through the sliding glass door out to his pool, sat down on the side and started kicking her feet in the pool. And he said, get back here. What are you doing? And she said, I am not afraid anymore. And he was shocked. So that started him into researching this. And he created thought field therapy, where he would work with someone, analyze everything that they had going on, and would try to map out specific points related to their specific issues. Well, he had a student that was a Stanford engineer named Gary Craig, who was the master at neurolinguistic programming. And as an engineer, I mean, I love engineers. They're like, why are we spending 6 months doing that? We know what all these points are. Let's just focus on whatever it is, and we will do a repetitive circuit on those points and see how that works. And it worked. And what it's doing, you bring up like think about a time. I remember you talking about waking up and seeing that, like, I don't know if it was a shadow person or a black blob on your ceiling or something.
I saw all kinds of stuff when I was a kid. Yeah.
Right. That's what and they told you didn't see it, right?
Yeah, they said it was all in my mind. I'm like, I could feel this thing flapping and touching my ears. If that's in my mind, then I'm crazy.
My mind.
Yeah.
So I lost where I was with that. Oh, so, okay, imagine that. All right, so you're thinking about that. Well, the brain doesn't know whether it's happening now or whether you're recalling it. The body has to follow what's going on in the brain. So it will, if there's anything still stuck there, the same physical sensations will pop up. You go into immediate fight or flight or freeze. The adrenaline starts going, the cortisol starts going. But when you're tapping, it sends a signal to the amygdala to stand down, that you are re-experiencing this, whatever this emotion is, and everything's okay. And it actually permanently alters the neural networks and the pathways in the brain that trigger that fight or flight. And there are often many aspects to something, but if you get enough of them, you can actually collapse that neural network. And it's not a thing anymore. People can tell you the story like they're giving you a recipe to bake cookies.
And does it do it instantly? Like, does it work? I mean, how fast does it work? It sounds to me like it works pretty quick.
It does work pretty quickly. I mean, there are what we call the 1 minute wonders, but a lot of times these things are involved and layered, and sometimes you have to peel an onion. So if somebody, let's say you had an experience with the relationship in your life and somebody always betrayed you or cheated on you. So, what do? We tend to go through life and somehow we find those relationships where someone's going to betray us or cheat on us so that we can eventually overcome that. Every one of those gets stored in that similar neural network. So sometimes they'll come in and they'll say, my husband's cheating on me, and we'll get the immediate anguish out of it, but we can't get down to it. So then it's like, okay, what else does this remind you of? And then they'll start going back. The nice thing is there might be 10 of those events, but if you can get the most significant, whatever the number will be, 3 or 4, the rest of them will collapse, what we call a generalization effect. And then those will be gone. And now you have a different choice you can make because you're not going to probably be drawn to that pattern anymore because you literally resolved it.
Huh. Even if it doesn't matter how bad the trauma, let's say like the dogman experience. Now, I've never made fun of people that say they saw a dogman or saw, I have a hard time believing it just because it just sounds so insane to me. Right.
It does.
And I grew up in the woods all my life out here in Arkansas. I heard some weird stuff, but I've never saw anything like that. But the way they told the stories, I would think there's no way that you're going to get over that. Like you would never go out in the woods again after something like that. And it still, I mean, have you seen this with your own eyes that it helped people?
No. All it did was, I believe in a lot of synchronicity. I think things start happening when you need them to happen. And what it did was prompt me to all of a sudden realize, who can these people go to? I mean, they're perfect. This is perfect for EFT. EFT, when you combine it with EMDR, they've achieved tremendous things with the veterans for their PTSD, getting 86% of them with significant results in an 8-week program. Well, PTSD is PTSD. The difference is I'm not going to challenge them and tell them what they didn't see. We're not going to have to go there. We're just going to clear what it is that they did see.
Could I use this to help have another maybe out-of-body experience since I haven't had one in so long? I mean, it sounds like it has a calming and a relaxing effect.
It totally does. In fact, if you remember way back when we were talking about out of body, and I asked you, I said, Robert Monroe talks about you better clear out your emotions before you do this, because if you don't, you're going to meet them on the next plane. What did he call it? The next locale.
Yeah, the second state or second body
right.
or locale too. Right.
And they're going to be icky and ugly. And I'm not Jason Quitt where I can say, oh, you're a lovely little damaged part of me. Let me bring you back and heal you. I'm going to be like I'm back in my body. Forget it.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly what happens to me. I want to get a little deeper into that too. But I also want to let you guys know as well that, Surviving the System is going to be on tomorrow night. You remember we had to announce that show's the new podcast. And the Paranormal podcast on the Fringe FM will be starting hopefully next week. And we'll be right back with Barb Charlton. This is some interesting stuff. Don't go anywhere.
Fringe listeners, this is Dave Cruz of Beyond the Strange, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
This is Elle. I listen to Lighting the Void because it's interactive radio with good content, interesting guests, and a humble host, sharing this journey through the esoteric. Hey, Joe Roop. Thanks for having us along for the ride.
Thank you so much. What a delightful evening.
Well, I got a lot of ground to cover.
Ahoy there. Gigi here from Shift Happens. Do you like to boogie down to topics such as ufology, the occult, and the mysteries behind our reality? Well, I invite you to join us every Friday night at 7 p.m. Pacific, that's 10 p.m. Eastern, as we like to punch that curiosity button and tickle that fancy. We tickle that fancy, but yeah, I don't know if that's the right analogy, but there's certainly a lot of tickling going on over here at Shift Happens.
Who were the real ancient Egyptians? What is it about ancient Egypt that captivates us all? The critically acclaimed series Magical Egypt is back with all new episodes. Let Chance Gardner and company take you on another adventure through Magical Egypt in the new series Magical Egypt 2. Magical Egypt 2 attempts a forensic reconstruction of the science of the ancients through a study of ancient aesthetics. Also, the best researchers and authors in the field like John Anthony West, Graham Hancock, Laird Scranton, Robert Bouval, Lon Duquette, Aaron Cheek, and more join together to explore the topics of the esoteric and the hidden messages of the ancient Egyptians. Just go to magicalegypt.com right now and put in the code word FRINGE and get 10% off any download or order, including the groundbreaking original Magical Egypt series, as well as the new episodes in Magical Egypt 2. Also, check out the great work and the companion series at magicalegypt.com. Click the banner on the Fringe FM or go to magicalegypt.com and use the code word FRINGE and get 10% off your order today while it lasts. Lighting the Void is proud to announce Mind and Magic's Protection and Defense Course for protection from magical and psychic attacks. This is not a joke. Magic practitioners are on the rise, and with that comes attacks from baneful or black magicians that try to harm or hurt others for their own selfish reasons. If you are not a believer in psychic attacks, then this isn't for you. If you are, and you want the power to defend yourself and your family and home, then I highly suggest you grab Freighter Xavier's Protection and Defense Course. In this course, you will learn how to tell if you are under attack from a natural source or if an individual is attacking you. The 4 forms of curses and attacks. How to remove self-imposed curses. The correct way to cleanse your home from negativity or malevolent entities. How to make your own holy water. What you should always keep near or under your bed. Herbs that banish negativity and promote purity. The most powerful banishing rituals on the planet. And for those that seem to want to harm you the most, how to put your enemies in a hell pit of their own making. You can also learn protection against shadow people and other entities. Or are you just in a bad planetary alignment? Even how to get rid of an enemy using a tic-tac box. It does not matter what your faith or belief is, this will work. Click the banner on the website at lightingthevoid.com or go to lightingthevoid.com/Xavier. Hey Fringe FM listeners, did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or no Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of the Fringe FM by calling 701-719-3971. No smartphone app or internet needed. Saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Call 701-719-3971. That's 701-719-3971. Listen to The Fringe FM on any phone, anytime, anywhere.
To call Joe, pick up the phone, dial 1-800-588-0335, toll free from the United States or Canada. You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
All right, welcome back to Lighting the Void. We're here with Barbara Charlton, and I hope everything goes smooth tonight. Apparently, we got some tornadoes and storms heading in, and Leo is acting insane. I'm hoping he don't jump up on the mixer board. But speaking of which, he looks traumatized over there. But that's exactly what we're talking about tonight. But it's paranormal trauma, or trauma that happens to people after they've had a scary event in their life, and how to heal it through things like EFT. But before the break, we were talking about the out-of-body experience, and you mentioned that Jason quit. You know, when we had that discussion where we saw these blobs, or I don't know what they are, shadow beings. They look like Rorschach symbols to me. Just whatever they were really freakishly fast. And it reminded me of when Robert Monroe talked about his book when he got into a fight with one of these things, you know, and when he was out of body. And he talked about how he was praying to God and Jesus and everything because he was so freaked out. And he thought he was going to die. Now, I agree with you. There's no way that I could know that was a part of myself when it happens at first. But he does spend a lot of time out of his body, and you were telling me that at the break. Is there something that we can do after we have an experience like that immediately? Like, say that happened to you, right? And you ended up getting in a squab with an entity or whatever it was in your dream state, or maybe you're out of the body and it really freaked you out. What would you do? Would you immediately start doing these techniques to help you calm down?
Yeah, I'd start tapping right away. There's something about when it's up and immediate, like let's say you're recovering from an argument where someone just walked out on you and you are just trembling and shaking. The last thing you think of is tapping, but it is the first thing that will bring you back down, because when you're in fight or flight, your blood leaves various parts of your body. It leaves your digestive tract. It leaves your reproductive system, because let's face it, that doesn't matter if you're going to be trampled by an elephant. You're going to need to fight, or you're going to need to flee, and you're also not going to be thinking with your brain. So the sooner you can tap and bring that back down, you have much more brain capacity again to decide what to do and how to handle something. It puts you back in control.
Does it help with things like food addiction and stuff?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's, they've used it on everything. I read about a case study where a woman was, she was cooking and she burned her hand. She had a dinner party. She was a practitioner and she tapped on it. And I thought, okay, I'm a believer. I've seen this work now for a long time, but that just seemed kind of out there. Well, I did it. And I said, well, I've got nothing to lose. I'll just tap on it. And I kid you not, the burn that was on the hot fry pan did not even turn red. It was a little tender, but it did not. I knew I was going to be bandaging it and it was going to blister most likely, because I'm not real good with knives and pans and stuff.
Well,
so it works on all of that.
Okay, well, I'm trying to think about the last scary experience I had was seeing things out of the corner of my eye. You know what I'm talking about, right? Like not when you've been up for 40 hours and stuff starts to move on you. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about something moved and you saw it and it was standing up. That's what happened to me. I saw something standing up like it was walking through the hall. And I even thought it was somebody in the house, so I started talking as if somebody was there, and nobody was there, right? When I realized nobody was there, my body really went into my heart started speeding up. Yep. I felt kind of clammy, And I was thinking, why am I freaked out? Whatever it was, it's not going to hurt me. But the fact, it just trips me out. The fact that it was some type of entity or whatever, it's scary. Even if it's a good entity. See, people think like because they're good, shiny angels that everybody is going to accept them, but you don't. When your eyes see something weird or something that's not supposed to be there, and I'm not talking about, bear with me here, but I'm not talking about something that you're unsure of. I'm talking about something you're sure of, that you saw it. Your mind doesn't accept it. It just doesn't. Mine doesn't. And it makes my heart speed up and I get full of adrenaline, and it's really weird.
So tapping immediately upon that. And again, this is a self-help tool. So you don't need a practitioner to, do your everyday garden variety stuff. And right there, I would tap. I wouldn't wait for anybody. And at least you will bring your heart rate back down. You'll get the blood back in your brain, and then you can start thinking, and hey, did it feel negative, or did it feel positive, or did it feel like anything? Did it just startle me? So you can be more back in control of how you're going to handle the situation from that point, but you're not going to be going into like pre-panic attack mode. What's your trigger for a panic attack? Start tapping when you notice the trigger.
I used to have panic attacks all the time when I was in my 20s, and I would put I had two things I carried with me all the time, a brown paper sack, and I had a rubber band wrapped around my wrist. And if I started feeling really weird and creepy, I would just take the rubber band and pop my wrist, right? I saw that in a movie today where somebody was doing that for anger. Now, though that sounds kind of crazy because you're inflicting pain on yourself, but it does bring you back to center. It's probably not the most healthy thing to do. I mean, if you could just tap something, that would probably be a lot easier.
Well, wasn't Albert, the hypnotist guy last night, wasn't he talking about if you get it at just the right time, and maybe when you snapped it, you were just receptive at the right time for that to bring you back to center. He was talking about how the preachers will be kind of mesmerizing you and then bam, hit you on the forehead at just the right moment. I wonder if it's something like that.
Yeah, they do that. They get into this.
I always thought that was just in the movies.
No. Because when I grew up Baptist, they'll get to screaming and hollering, and you'll get into this trance zone where the only thing people can do that are sitting down in church is they can just nod their head and go, amen. Praise Jesus.
And duck.
And then he'll slam the Bible on the, pulpit when he's trying to, are you not listening to me? Are you? Like trying to get a good message across. I'm going to do it one of these nights. I'm going to break out into preaching just to give it to you guys and see so you can experience and see what it's like. Would you
send me a note the night you're actually going to do that? Because I want to listen live when you do that.
Yeah, I know. It was a trippy thing. It was like when I was a kid, it scared me. Like I'd be in my seat coloring, and my dad'd be like, pay attention or something. And he'd slam his book down, and I'd jump up and go, what the hell was that? And church was traumatizing to me as a kid. I probably needed some tapping after that. I got thrown out of preschool.
What?
Not preschool.
Why?
Not preschool. What do they call it? Sunday school.
Oh, Sunday school. Oh, wow.
Where they send the kids in there because they're, they got whoever teaches it. Well, I lifted up a girl's dress and blew on her stomach, and they kicked me out for a day or two because my grandpa used to do that. He used to blow on my belly, and that tickled. So I thought it was cool. I was going to do that to a girl or something, and they threw me out. That's terrible to do to a 4-year-old.
Exactly, but they're getting so wigged out about that stuff now. I'm surprised you didn't have to go for some kind of diversity training or something.
Right, yeah. So
no blowing on stomachs, Joe.
Yeah, I don't do that anymore. Not unless somebody. Not. Well, if you ask me, I might. But I'm thinking. I'm wondering about this, the cryptid thing, the dogman thing. I don't want to upset anybody, but I wonder why I've never seen these things. And I'm in the woods. I've been in the woods for 30 years. If there's anything out there, I would hope that I would think I've seen it by now. Does it cause, like when I say stuff that way, you're saying that's not what you're talking about. I'm not traumatizing anybody by just saying why I don't believe it.
No, I don't see that at all. What's re-traumatizing someone who is going back and reliving that experience where they actually, what's required for trauma is just like any one of a little handful of things, right? You had a reasonable expectation that you were going to be safe. You had a reasonable expectation that someone was going to be there to protect you. There's a couple little things like that. So when that is violated, that's the start of being traumatized. And I'm not a psychologist. I am not a psychiatrist. I don't analyze any of that stuff. I can just watch those reactions and watch people and tap them through it. But these people thought they were going to die, and these dogmen, they've got they ran up level with my car up to 55 miles an hour. Well, those are the things that nightmares are made of, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So they're having you relive that and tell that whole thing in excruciating detail. Now they've opened that person's trauma window back up again. And then they're like very empathetic, but they're not doing anything to get the person some help. And then now that person's just going to go off. Well, that felt better to talk about it, but nothing is resolved. I'm still just as afraid as I was before, maybe even a little bit more so because it has now been reinforced.
All right, well, let's test this out then. Okay, so what's the scariest, I don't know, supernatural or paranormal thing that's happened to you in your life? It don't have to be big. I'm just curious.
Nothing was really scary. The most fun one was right the year after my dad died. We came down here to Texas to take care of my parents. And the year after he died, it was the night before my husband's birthday, and it was about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. I had just gone to bed, and Steve comes flying into the bedroom, and I said, "What's the matter?" He said, "A candle just jumped off the mantle and landed at my feet." And I'm like, "What? Like, do we have an earthquake?" Or we're outside of Dallas, I suppose. Nothing else was disturbed. We were like, was the fireplace going? No. Was the candle burning? Never had been lit. It's been up there for 3 years already. And he was kind of shaken, and I was just like, that's interesting. I wonder what else Dad's going to do. And I have a friend who's been psychic since she was in the cradle, and whenever something like that happens, I just check in with her. And she said, yeah, he hasn't learned to manage his power yet. It's like, tell him not to hit the crystal wax catcher on the way down this time. It was all over the heart.
No, you said manage his power, so are you with me on the thing where we do have these kind of powers or like stuff that we're not aware of? Do you believe that?
Yeah, I do. And I do believe that when we die, I believe we're not done. We're done with this body. But I believe that if they want to stick around for a while and stick close to their family, or they have something, maybe they want to see their daughter married off or whatever, someone wants to stick around, they'll make themselves known. My mom did it too. She was fading in and out towards the end. And I had that Siri thing on my phone turned on, and it was across the room. And Steve and I were talking about something kind of quietly, and all of a sudden my phone lights up and says, "What do you want to know about Ruby Faith?" Now that one got my heart going. I went, what?
Yeah, that's pretty
Did
trippy.
she leave her body for a little bit there? Maybe, I don't know.
Okay, well, what about long-term stuff, things that keep happening, right? And I'll give you an example. I guess it's okay to talk about this now. I've brought this up before, but it happens quite frequently to me, is the knocking. Have you heard me talk about that?
I have.
That's one of the things in my life that hasn't gone away. And I hear knocks in my sleep, and it's always 3 knocks, and it's always loud, and it always sounds just like someone's at the door. This always happens when I'm in between states or in the hypnagogic state. Right. I think it's happened to me at least 15 times now. And I just stopped talking about it because I'm not getting used to it or anything, but I'm tired of not knowing what it is. So I started getting frustrated. Well, the other night I had a crazy dream. It was one of those dreams, and I was going to talk about it last night. I didn't get to, but it's one of those dreams, that you're glad that you woke up from. You all know what I'm talking about, right? Mm-hmm. You don't, something happened in the dream that if it happened in real life, you wouldn't be able to take it, right? It would just kill you. It'd crush you. And even in that dream, the one thing that woke me up was the knocking. And then no matter how many times it happens, it sounds so real to me did I still rush to the door and open the door to think someone's there? It is not, it's so hard to explain, actually, because it sounds like it's in my dream. But have you ever been sleeping and you've been dreaming about something? You're just dead asleep, and there's a noise that wakes you up, like somebody saying, hey, wake up, or there's somebody outside, or you hear a horn honk or something, and you just jump up, or alarm clock goes off.
They call your name. You hear your name real loud, and you think someone's looking for you.
Right, and so you wake up, and you say, what's up, and you just forget about the dream. Well, the knocking is what's waking me up. It doesn't sound like it's in the dream. It sounds like it's in real life, and I have to wake up to go answer the door. When I go answer the door, no one's there. Never. And it's not just here. I can be anywhere, and it happens.
So has anyone else heard it that's been with you at the time?
No. No, and the weird thing is, another thing too, the weird thing about it is it doesn't happen when people are around me. Like say like when Eric came to the studio and he crashed here, it didn't happen. It doesn't happen when I'm around people. It doesn't happen if I pass out at a friend's house. It only happens when I'm by myself. It's starting to freak me out.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So the first place I would start with you on that is I would have you tell me pick the time that it was the scariest or what was the most startling time. And I would have you tell me, I was doing this, and then, I went to bed and I was starting to dream or starting to doze off. And then I heard this bang, bang, bang. And I would ask you, we would do this on video if at all possible, because I can see if your shoulders start to tense or, your face gets tense or something. And I would ask you then, where are you feeling it right now? Because it's startling you. It's causing some form of probably fear or alarm. And I would ask you, what does it feel like? I feel it in my solar plexus, and my solar plexus feels tight. Okay, 0 to 10. How intense is it? It's about a 6 right now. If I could think about it, we tap that down. So the first thing we do is tap down the reaction, and we slowly peel it back. Then at some point, we would get to the part where I'd say, what does that remind you of? Has there ever been anything else that has produced that kind of response? Maybe it's not a knocking or whatever it is, but we would kind of go looking for it because that knocking is wrapped around something. Maybe your subconscious is trying to keep you safe. It thinks you shouldn't be going to sleep yet. I don't know. But usually it's tied to something way earlier that we've long forgotten about and didn't even think it mattered. It happens quite frequently.
I can't think of anything that it would be. I'm hoping it's something I haven't suppressed, right? Because I didn't used to believe in that either until I really started looking into it. And we do suppress things, especially from like when we're child, things happen to us, like you were talking about earlier, and we don't remember it, but it's there. And I don't know if it's healthy to like leave it. There's this movie I was watching. I forget the name of the damn movie, but it was with Peter Dinklage, where they would go back into their memories, things that they've suppressed, and bring them back up so that they could deal with it. But it actually ended up making a lot of people crazy because in that movie they were saying that your mind suppresses things for a reason because you can't handle it. But I'm kind of in that church where I think maybe it's a good thing that we push it away and we get rid of it. What do you think about that?
I think sometimes that can be a good answer, but at the rate that this sounds like it's going on now, it's kind of bothering you. So instead of trying to figure out, where it came from and what's going on with it, the first thing that I would work with you on is bringing down that response. And if you had, you could tell me 20 different times where this was a little bit different or that was a little bit different, and you could still feel a response, we tap it down. And once like that protective layer of it was gone, then something else that might not be obvious now that was covering it over or pushing it down just may pop up.
Yeah, because look, if I went to a psychologist or a shrink and told them about this, and I've thought about it, the first thing they're going to do, I know for a fact, and I could be wrong, but they're going to get that prescription pad out. Or they're going they're going to send me to, some place. At least that's what I'm afraid of. I don't know, but I'm afraid they're going to send me somewhere or start evaluating me, or, the next thing you know, you got thumbsticks in your mouth and they're shocking your brain, right?
Yeah, the old Patty Duke movies.
Yeah, I know, and I wonder sometimes just how many people that have to go through that we call schizophrenic or whatever, that just aren't gifted,
Right. Or maybe they truly are hearing voices, but they're told that that's wrong, and so they blame themselves or shame themselves for that their whole lives, and just believe that it's not really real and crazy.
So how many people have you done with this so far? Has it just been a few, or has it been quite a bit of people?
I haven't worked with too many with the paranormal aspect of it, but it's so exactly parallel to any number of other things that I've worked with. Just as traumatic, just as it's not life threatening, but you kind of feel like your life is over because of this thing. And we've worked through them, and then they move on. Some of them lifelong fear of their parents. One, would run them with guilt all the time, and I'm always feeling like I'm doing something wrong, and it was stopping them from moving forward in their life. Well, we got done with that, and he said, "Yeah, my mom called me and told me you have to do this," and I started to respond, and I realized, hey, that's not a thing anymore. And he said, "I feel pretty good." I said, "Well, go do what you're going to do, and anything else comes up, come on back." But that was all he needed. But it was really buried deeply, and it affected how he was running his life. So it's the same mechanism. It's just a different cause.
So I'm still confused, though, Barbara. How did you get into this field? Like, how did you get into looking at these types of things? Not just the paranormal, but metaphysical stuff. I'm just curious about, because you just seem like, I'm not saying you're a normal person. All right, don't take that wrong or anything, but you seem to me like somebody that just leads a normal kind of life, right? You don't really. You said you've never had any paranormal or scary experiences, so I'm just wondering, like, how you got into this.
Well, I've always been interested in alternative things, and I mean, my mom had this really eclectic book collection when I was a kid, and she'd have a book, something like, Tales from the Dark Side, and we would watch Night Gallery together, and I would ask her how this worked, and the stories about someone was being buried, and at night they could hear them knocking. You must have reminded me of that. So my whole life, I've been looking at that and fascinated with that. I've been very intuitive my whole life. I just didn't know how much I was using that. So that I just always kept my finger in, and I've done a lot of reading. Some stuff makes sense to me and some stuff doesn't, but I think it helps me to be fluent in a lot of that. And then the tapping and the EFT came in 2016 after my mom and dad were gone. And I thought, oh my God, if I'd had this when mom and dad were here, I wouldn't be half as gray as I am now. It's fabulous if you're a caregiver to an older parent, because the roles reverse and they're very fluid, and you don't know if you're coming or going half the time. I mean, it's a godsend to someone in that position. So yeah. I just kind of put them together.
Yeah, what I'm trying to do is figure out what got you listening to this show. Because I ask questions that most people won't even try to go down that road, because there's no way of knowing. But I don't believe that. I think we can. Jeff Harmon and I have discussed that. He thinks that there's just things we're not going to know. We're not smart enough to figure out. I'm kind of the other side of that. I think there's things that we can figure out if we really pursue it. It's not going to be easy, but we can figure it out. And so I don't know. Yeah, maybe that's what it was. It was me trying to ask a general question, but really it was a selfish question, trying to figure out why you're listening to this show, to be honest with you.
Go back to Art Bell. Okay. So I remember Art Bell way, way back. And back in the early 90s, I think it was, I was starting to not sleep all night. And so I would turn Art Bell on. So instead of worrying about working out a problem at work, I would listen to him and go back to sleep. Well, I've always been open-minded to these things. Well, that led to Coast, then that led to, I don't even remember who other was, but I ran across Mike Cleland, and I was trying to get Steve to listen to Mike Cleland on a trip back to Minnesota last November. And he was interested in him, and I came across your show, and I just, you were different. You weren't a sycophant to the guests, like, oh, tell me more. And no, you ask intelligent questions. So I started listening to you. Well, I've always been interested in this, and you opened my mind to Robert Monroe, and that one out of body I had when I was 14. That was cool, but
now we got a
serious
story.
What you're doing.
Yeah. Now we got a story. That's what I've been digging for, right? But no, I appreciate that, but it's not. I don't think it's intelligence. It's more like I'm not very articulate, right? So I'm not. Most people like those very well spoken and articulate broadcasters that have a huge verbal dictionary in their head that can say, I'm just, I think, well, I can't do that. I'm not good at that. So what I'll do is I'll just try to ask the most honest thing that's on my mind, even if it is weird or strange or it makes people feel uncomfortable, because I feel other people have the same things on their mind,
Well, you're not attacking anybody, though. You are actually genuinely interested. And you get all frustrated when you think you're pronouncing a word wrong. Well, all that tells me is you read a lot.
I used to.
So,
yeah,
well, it stayed with you. I wouldn't knock it.
But there's nothing more boring than hearing the host try to have the guest talk, brag about them. So, yeah, but we'll get into your story, right? God, that's incredibly selfish, but it did make me feel good. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I would not say it would not so.
I appreciate that. I don't know what's going on in Sacramento. I keep this app on me called Broadcastify that's like ham radio and emergency radio. And a little while ago, like 11,000 people tapped into that thing. So something's going on out there.
Wow.
You guys can,
I can find that for free too.
Yeah, check that out. I'll try to check it out and see what's going on. We'll be right back with Barbara Charlton. Don't go anywhere. Also, the phone lines are open. It's 1-800-588-0335. Maybe if you've had a really traumatic paranormal experience that you can't get out of your head, or maybe it's something we never heard of before, give us a call. You can text in too. Be right back.
Lighting the Void Radio.
Hello, this is Vance Nesbitt. Take the time to expand your mind by listening to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop right here on the Fringe FM.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now. The Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
We all have that story to tell in our lives. The winds were howling, the ground shook, you could hear rushing water, and then history repeats itself. When there's no power, refrigeration fails, stores with their shelves stripped bare, ATMs can't operate, deliveries stop. Then what? These events can last days or weeks. You need a plan. In statements made during recent interviews, FEMA Administrator Brock Long has repeatedly urged all Americans to understand three truths. FEMA is broke, the system is broken. If this is the new normal, Americans can't rely on federal cavalry when disaster strikes. Don't get caught out in the elements empty-handed. Prepare with us by going to preparewiththefringe.com and get your 2-week food supply. 92 servings, 8 food varieties with 25-year shelf life. Normally $137, now only $75. Or get a month's supply, normally $247, now only $147, shipped in one business day. Just go to preparewiththefringe.com or call 888-440-7931. That's 888-440-7931. Get this great offer and be prepared while it lasts.
So,
Have you heard of heavy metals? I'm not talking about the heavy metals in the junkyard. I'm talking about the heavy metals that build up in your body. Heavy metals in your body can make you feel sluggish, fatigued, and just plain off. Why not try Life Change Tea at GetTheTea.com? Cleansing your body and making you feel great. No, not cleansing the outside of your body, but cleansing the inside of your body of intruders that sneak their way into you and set up an intruder camp. Life Change Tea helps remove unwanted intruder camps. Brew it, steep it, and drink in the results. Tastes great, so you can create a new health habit. Our tea loves to help people. It just needs the chance. So order yours today by logging on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Our Life Change Super Strength Tea is waiting. This could be a beautiful relationship. Take charge of your health. Order at GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com.
You know, food was different 60 years ago. It was minimally processed, free of pesticides. It was nourishing and healthful for your body. Today, GMOs, pesticides, herbicides, and heavy processing have depleted the nutrition of our food supply, which takes a toll on our health and energy. It's harder than ever to get the right nutrition. That's what Life Change Tea is meant to counteract. Our specially blended, powerful herbal formulas can give you more energy without caffeine. It's a mild cleanse, a mild daily detox. A good detox can help revive and bring back the energy of your youth. GetTheTea.com is the website. It'll cleanse you from the inside out with this herbal proprietary formula. Go to GetTheTea.com. There's no fillers, no GMOs. It's organic. Not available in stores. You must go to their website, GetTheTea.com. And their supplements are a great way to maintain your health. Read the testimonials on the website. Go to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com.
Did you know that qualified patients can access medical cannabis in all 50 states? Annasense is a medical cannabis collective that helps patients in all 50 states gain access to cannabis medication. Annasense does this with a streamlined process and strict compliance with the Compassionate Use Act of 1996, the Affordable Care Act, and the U.S. Constitution. It is important for each patient to understand the legalities involved, the costs, and the benefits of cannabis medication. Through truth, legalization, and education, the medical benefits of cannabis will supplant recreational perceptions, and the real vision for change will be realized. Let the people and their personal doctors take control of their medical cannabis decisions before the greed of big business takes over. The tipping point for change is today, and Cannasense is ready to lead the charge and enable legal access for all qualified patients to medical cannabis through its proven system. For more information, go to thefringe.fm/care or click the banner on the website today.
Do you want to know the truth? Are UFOs real? Are aliens visiting Earth? Are governments around the world hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO Seekers, official partner of The Fringe FM, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Join us as we investigate locations like Area 51 by subscribing on YouTube at youtube.com/UFO Seekers.
All right, welcome back to Lighting the Void. Hey, listen, I want to tell you guys about this product at GetTheTea.com. It's called G.I. Joy, and it's been a miracle for my stomach. It has got all of the stuff that you need for your stomach. It's totally organic. It's got the acidophilus, aloe. You've heard me talk about how aloe really helped me. Peppermint, colostrum, and it took a little while. After I took it for a little while, for a few weeks, and I started noticing a big difference. Now this is after after I had my appendix taken out too, which, they used to tell us that we don't really have those. They don't know what it's for. We know what it's for now. So if you want the best and you want to get the best stuff and you want to help out the Fringe FM, go to GetTheTea.com. It's called G.I. Joy, and grab it. I've got tons of stuff from Get the Tea, but that's one of my favorites. That's one of the ones that's really helped me out besides the tea. And tonight we're here with Barbara Charlton, and we're talking about paranormal trauma, EFT. And before the break, I got something out of you. You'd mentioned you had an out-of-body experience when you were 14. I don't care how short it was. I don't care how long it was. I want to hear about it.
You think you're so sneaky, don't you?
Well, this is the stuff, man. This is where it's happening, in between sleep and awake.
It is. It really is. We lived out on the border between Minnesota and Wisconsin. It was real quiet. We lived on the river. And I took a nap. It was a Saturday or Sunday afternoon. I don't know. But there was a ballooning academy down towards Afton, Minnesota. And they would come up and fly their balloons over the river. And they like to fly them over our place because they would come down low and hit the burners and make our horses go crazy and tear up the lawn, which, Mom was real happy about that. Well, I'm taking a nap, and all of a sudden, I am up in between the balloons. I mean, like I'm up, where the balloons swell out. And I'm looking, and I'm kind of looking down into the baskets, and I didn't know anybody. And then I looked over at the house. So the perspective must have been 30, 40 feet above the house. And I thought, well, I'm not supposed to be up here. And then it was like, boom. And this sounds stupid. I kind of landed on the side of the house just gently. And then I was sitting up straight in bed. Like, how when you jerk awake in bed and sit up real fast. And
yeah. Did you feel the house though? Like when you hit it?
Yeah, I did.
That's weird, isn't it? Yeah.
But it was solid, yet it wasn't solid. And then, I didn't think about, I better get back to my body because I didn't even know what any of that was, but it was more than a lucid dream. I have had one of those, but I still doubt that one, but it was really real. And so all those different things have contributed to me to be, I'm a skeptic, but I'm kind of if I see enough proof, I'm a willing skeptic. I don't buy it all, but that made me know that's a real thing.
Interesting. Well, do you believe in the dog man then? A creature that looks like a dog that stands on two legs that's extremely freaky.
I got to tell you, I have a friend that I made who is a researcher and about as down to earth as anyone I've ever met, who made the distinction between dog man and wolf creature. And dog man sounds to me like a genetically engineered creature that I think got away. And I don't know what the military does, but I think they're 50 years ahead of where we all are at any given time. But wolf creature has the wolf type or the German Shepherd shaped head, but they have the Sasquatch body. And she's played with Sasquatch when she was a little kid. She's always had this connection. So she was trying to distinguish between them. And Sasquatch told her, wolf creature is friend. Dog man is not. And they will actually move out of an area where a dog man will move in. Now, that's all I know. I trust her. I don't think she's blowing smoke, but I do think there's a difference and people don't know enough about them. So maybe wolf creature is getting a bad rap because of dog man. They don't mess with people. They're kind of more like Sasquatch. Don't mess with them. They won't mess with you.
I got you. Yeah. Yeah.
That's all I know.
I don't understand it though. I just don't like, I get it. That to me, oh man, I probably lost about 100 listeners, but look, I don't,
you asked.
I could buy that it was a genetically engineered creature, possibly, right? I could buy that because I do think that we are in an era of like mad scientist age. And, I tried to do a show about that, but I really couldn't quite explain just how that freaked me out because I kept running into all these articles and all of these different things that all these scientists were doing. And there was nobody there to tell them not to, messing with the universe, slamming particles together, creating lasers that would cut through the earth. I mean, I can go on and on. Cloning, chips, you name it. And because these people are so much smarter than all of us, we don't question them. And then who's going to, like, you're going to send a government agent out there? What's he going to do? Take his pen and pad and just go, what are you doing? Yeah. And then they use all the scientific jargon and the dumb government agent nods his head and goes, well, okay, I'm just making sure. I mean, we don't know what they're doing, Guys like Elon Musk kind of freak me out. They're super intelligent. They got a lot of money, and they can experiment on anything they want. And we're cloning meat now. For God's sakes, we're creating meat, That's just weird to me. But maybe you're right.
I'm scared of, honestly, if I'm scared of anything, I'm scared of AI. Because the people have way too much money that are developing it. And I think that's something else that can get out of our control, because I think they're way better at it than they let us believe. That scares me.
I want to try this. So is this tapping thing, does this come from, I'm getting some chatter on the Fringe FM chat. Oh man, I'm not good with chat rooms when I'm trying to do a show. But does this come from like a spiritual tradition? Some people are saying that it comes from Buddhism. Well,
It's based on the meridian system that's used in acupuncture. A good description is emotional acupuncture without the needles. So that the whole premise of EFT or tapping is, and there are many different forms of it. The one that I'm using is the original. It's the clinical studied. It's what all the studies have been based on, or the bulk of them. It holds that when you have something like that stuck in your body, it's a disruption to the energy system. And when you have something disruption in the energy system, now you leave the body open for a physical weakness, for an illness to come in. So I gave an example to somebody else. There was a woman who it crushed her. She had an abortion, and she ended up marrying the man. And I didn't see her for 30 years and found out she had died of cancer. And I immediately knew it had something to do with the reproductive system, because she never, ever forgave herself for that. So your body can be so literal. She never got to release that. She had to keep it secret from him, she felt. And I think that had a huge impact on that. And that's not the only example. That's just one I know personally.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this whole thing is an energy system, but it sounds kind of woo-woo to me. Like, I don't want to get too on the woo side. I've got people that are some of my best friends that they're love light, rainbows, unicorns, and puppies, right? Everything is beautiful, light, bright, energy, ascension, all this stuff. When I look into it, I still believe that if you don't do your shadow work, you're always doing shadow work, right? Like, we think, I guess it's probably social media that's doing it to us, because we see all these pictures of everybody smiling with their family at the beach and all these memes and stuff. But in real life, I think people are battling demons 24/7, 24/7, and they don't want to admit it. They don't want to put, or they're afraid others are going to see their weaknesses or know that, they have certain demons or whatever, but I don't think they go away. And that brings me back to the point that I was talking about at the beginning of the show. I truly believe that there's something out there, whatever that is. You can call it cosmic evil. You can call it demons, archons, whatever you want to name them. It is just very odd to me that there's so many stories of these things that come through when we're children. And they don't come through in a friendly manner. I mean, if you want to have, why do you think so many children have stuffed animals and imaginary friends? Because their parents won't talk to them about this stuff, right? They can talk to their teddy bear about it.
Who do we know who those imaginary friends are? They might really be talking to someone that they don't have all of our filters already applied to them.
I had a big bear when I was a kid, like a big bear. One of those real big teddy bears you could buy?
Like you get the fair?
Not that big.
Or something?
Well, it was almost as big as I was, that kind of bear. And I would talk to it when I was a kid, but my dad was incredibly verbally abusive, right? And sometimes physically, I didn't get timeouts, and I didn't get spankings. I got ass whoopings and mouth smacks is what I got, right? And I don't think parents know what that does to children, right? They think that they're teaching a kid a lesson about being disrespectful. But when you rear back and you smack a kid in the mouth, and you draw blood, or my ears used to ring when it happened to me, unless you got a really damn good reason, I think it's an incredibly terrible thing to do, because it imprints on their soul. It's something they never forget about, ever. They never forget those type of things.
No, because you've got someone that, is supposed to love you and protect you, and then they're the person you need protection from. I mean, I got spanked, but I was never hit in anger. And it was always like, okay, I told you what was going to happen if you pushed it that far. And it was usually something that was significant or dangerous. And it was like, okay, come on, we got to do this. And I didn't get my hide tanned. I didn't have to, one time I did have to go cut a willow switch, but I still didn't draw blood, or I couldn't sit down for a week. It wasn't anything like that, but it was an impression. And then after I was 7, they said, you've reached the age of reason.
Mm-hmm.
We're beyond all that.
Yeah. So what I was getting at is, and I lost my train of thought because I even started talking about it, and I started having flashbacks when I was a kid. Right.
Start tapping, Joe. See, we should have been on beforehand.
Well, where do I tap? Wherever I feel the most pain? Because right now I'm thinking about my head.
Yeah. No. That chart I sent you with I showed you the eye points and everything. It's that other one with the photo. Okay. So you can take that and start at any place. And while your heart's starting to race or things start heating up, you just tap. You'll go like, I don't know if you can hear this, but bop, 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 like 8 or 10 times on each spot. Keep the focus on what was getting you wound up, and until you feel relatively neutral. And you'll bring yourself at least back down to where, okay, that's gone. And you may not get it completely gone right now, but you'll get back to where it's not a focus for you right at the moment.
I got you. Look, I don't want you guys to think that my father was an evil man. He wasn't. He was just doing the best that he knew how to do. Right. When he was brought up, his father used to beat the living hell out of him. I don't want to get into that because everybody's heard this story. But I don't think we as a society know exactly what that does to children. Like, we all think we know how to raise our children because of our parents. But, we don't study it. Maybe we're all doing it wrong. But my point was, it's like when you have a paranormal trauma, or you see something when you're a kid, and that parent is not going to, well, maybe it's because I didn't really have a mother, but that parent's not going to talk to you about it. They're just going to say, well, you're just seeing stuff. Right. I've told you this time and time again. It's all in your head. All you got to do is just get it out of your head, and you won't see it anymore. And it's like, you can't say anything to them because you don't want to piss them off or get on their nerves. And you end up stuffing all that stuff down in you. So these kids, they get big teddy bears or whatever, and they talk to them. And then you're a real jerk if you get mad at them for talking to their teddy bears and stuff. But I used to talk to mine, and it would talk back, but it would be like my voice telling me everything's okay. That's all in my head.
You're self-soothing. Yeah. I talked to my cat.
Right. Yeah.
My cat actually did talk back, but I had to kind of put that in perspective. You're not on TV. The cat's not really talking to you.
Yeah, that's pretty trippy. Right. And
it is.
You don't want to get into that too much, because then you might turn into the Zodiac killer or something and say the dog's talking to you. But I remember when I burned the teddy bear, like when I threw it in the trash, burned it. It was so devastating to me, but I knew I had to grow up. But now that I think about it, now that I'm a grown man, I wish I would have never burned that thing. I wish I still had it sitting on a shelf somewhere.
Put it away in a box in the attic until maybe your kids have kids or something.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Exactly. But that's the thing that I used to squeeze the daylights out of when I would see those things in my room. I'm almost 40. I've forgotten most of my childhood. Things I did in high school, I've forgotten about. Things I did in the 7th grade. But those things, those even nightmares that I had when I was a kid, I still remember. So there's definitely some big imprints these things leave on you.
Right. And those things can actually be built on later, and we don't always make that connection. But, you were going back to it's a little too woo-woo. What I will tell you is Congressman Jeff Ryan actually is the one who wrote to the VA and said, what we're doing for our veterans with PTSD isn't working, but clinical trials from Harvard Medical School have proven that EFT is effective in a vast majority of the cases. Why aren't you using it? And 4 years later or 5 years later, the VA finally recognized EFT as generally recognized as safe, and now their therapist can use it with their vets, and they can get anywhere from 36 to 100% symptom relief from their PTSD. I'll take that.
Yeah, that's incredible. That is pretty incredible.
It's documented.
So what would you do in a case like, if it was Guy, would you ask him? I mean, think about it, because when you get done, if you helped him, right, he still has to go back to that house. He still has to go back to that place. I mean, it doesn't stop if like hauntings are happening. It doesn't stop that, or does it?
Right. No, I don't. It depends. Well, okay. So here's the question then: how much do we have input into the nature of those hauntings and how severe they are? I don't know that answer. But for an ongoing situation, EFT can help. It can help you situationally bring that fear down after the events happen. But if you wanted to clear that house, then I think you have to bring in, it sounds like whatever today's version of Dr. Malachi Martin is.
Okay, so now I'm really starting to think about this. When they saw, if you go to Guy McCourt's YouTube channel, it's either under Guy McCourt or The Haunting on Church Street.
Okay.
They were talking about the girl that popped up in the video. So what you just said about how we could be imprinting these things as well. So I'll give you an example. He went in there with a night shot camera and was looking at his buddy, and they were talking about how they dug up this dress and some bones. And then they kind of started talking about the backstory of this girl that supposedly lived there that was kept down in the basement because she was tortured. And her, the guy that lived there, the serial killer, whatever. It's horrendous to think about. But was pouring acid on her face. Now think about what that would do to your face, right? And he pans the camera over, and the image pops up. I might play it just to let you guys know. There's some bad language in there, but I might play it just to let you know how freaky it is. But there is the image of the girl pops up into the camera, and he doesn't notice it at first because he's just chatting with his buddy, and then he says, holy shit, there's somebody behind you right there. Look. And then you can tell he goes into fight or flight because he just bolts. And his buddy said, yeah. And his buddy's like, well, I felt something grab me, and they just bolt out of the room. There was no after discussion, no anything. It was, it could be fake, maybe, but I doubt it. It just doesn't seem fake to me because the first time I watched it, I felt the fight or flight watching the video. You know what I'm saying? Like I felt what he was feeling.
I do. I didn't watch it. I heard you guys talking about it, but you could hear the change in his voice when he talked about it.
Yeah, I might bring that. You know what? I might actually bring that up. It's late night for all you kiddies. If you're listening, you might want to plug your ears though. But you got to forgive the guy because when something like that happens, even as sweet as you are, Barbara, I think you might curse, right? It's pretty scary.
I have potential. Trust me.
You got potential, right? Very good. All right. Look, we're already halfway through the broadcast. Don't forget, after the broadcast, the Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable is going to be on. We're here for you 5 nights a week, right here on the Fringe FM. We'll be right back.
From Studio 401, it's the Stranger Than Fiction News right here on The Fringe FM. I'm Vance Nesbitt, and here's our headlines. Federal employee startled by a flying creature living in Mississippi State. Tate County, Mississippi. A woman says that an unidentified bipedal flying creature standing by a window outside her house startled her during a storm in northwest Mississippi, and that she photographed a series of footprints she believes belongs to the being. Marie, a 51-year-old woman who claims to work for the federal government, told Cryptozoology News that she was sleeping on the couch in the living room when the sighting occurred. Quote, "It was around 11 p.m. The storm had knocked out the power from 8:30 p.m. until about 1:30 in the morning," she said. "I literally saw and felt a shadow cover the window that was blacker than black inside and outside the house. It startled me so badly that I immediately grabbed for a flashlight." The creature, the federal employee states, was large and could fly. She says she believes it was a Mothman-like creature, but known by locals as Swift Peter. The following day, Marie and her family discovered a set of 7-toed footprints they think could be evidence of the flying visitor. She says that she is very familiar with the local wildlife and that she wasn't able to match the tracks with any known animal. Source cryptozoologynews.com. And most of the meat people will be eating by the year 2040 will not come from slaughtered animals, according to a report that predicts 60% will either be grown in vats or replaced by plant-based products that look and taste like meat. The report by the global consultancy A.T. Kearney, based on expert interviews, highlights the heavy environmental impacts of conventional meat production and concerns people have about the welfare of animals under industrial farming. Source, The Guardian. And a huge shaggy head of a 30,000-year-old wolf was unearthed in Siberia. A well-preserved head belonging to an ancient species of wolf has been pulled from the permafrost of northeastern Siberia. The enormous, well-preserved head could yield important genetic information about the evolutionary history of wolves and the origin of domesticated dogs. A local resident living in northern Siberia discovered the disembodied head in melting permafrost during the summer of 2018. The Siberian Times reported the discovery was made public at a National Museum of Emerging Science and Innovation in Tokyo, Japan, during the grand opening of its mammoth exhibit. Source, Gizmodo.com. And without further ado, here's an interesting fun fact. Title 14, Section 1211 of the Code of Federal Regulations that was implemented on July 16th of 1969 makes it illegal for U.S. citizens to have any contact with extraterrestrials or their vehicles. Thanks for listening to the Stranger Than Fiction News right here on the Fringe FM. Again, I'm Vance Nesbitt, news anchor and sorcerer.
The Fringe FM isn't just a radio station. We also provide services for all your audio production needs. If you are interested in live radio or pre-recorded podcasts, we're here to help. We even do audio enhancements and voiceovers if needed. If you want to do a podcast or live radio show and even want the option to syndicate on terrestrial radio, from simple audio file enhancement to live production and call screening, we have you covered. We have worked with some of the best professionals in the business in order to provide coaching instruction for content creation, show structure, and more. Contact The Fringe Digital Media for more at info@thefringe.fm. That's info@thefringe.fm. Or call 501-777-5631 for a consultation.
All right, so I'm going to just bear with me here. I'm going to play this thing. I probably should have done it the night Guy was on here. And you can't see it, but just imagine, well, I've got Barbara to find this video. This is probably one of the scariest things. Whether you believe it's real or not, we can debate that all night long, I guess, but this would traumatize me for sure. And what I'll do is I'll play a little bit of their discussion, and then I'll fast forward it to the back part here so you guys can actually hear what happened at the end. But it's pretty wild. So here we go.
Buried in that dirt, and then we found a black dress.
Yes, we did.
So I don't know.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. Anyway, we was looking for treasure and found maybe a grave site, you know. But we still dug it out there, didn't we? Not realizing what we about, you know,
Oh yeah, we didn't know.
We didn't know what was going to happen. What, you know?
Yeah, they're just drinking beers. You can tell this guy's buzzed too.
What can we opened? A big can of worms.
Right. Yeah, it was pretty bad. You know, it was. What do you think happened down here?
I don't know. I don't have no idea. Other than we knocked some block out, dug some dirt out, and found a black pair of pants and a black dress.
And some bones.
In the wall,
and some bones.
And, yeah, a bone.
Now you can see it, but he doesn't notice her.
You've
right?
seen the bone.
I seen a bone. No,
We've
I
seen
don't know if either you seen 2 or 3. I seen one for sure.
Yeah.
That's all I seen. One bone kind of looked like a finger bone, maybe. Or it could have been from an animal. Who knows?
Who knows? Well, yeah. But it seems kind of funny that, you know, an animal bone would have been found with a dress.
Is your cat down here?
No, my cat's not down here. Holy shit, dude. There is somebody right behind you right now. Holy shit, it just showed up in the fucking screen, dude. It just showed up in the screen. I shit you not.
All right, so he bolts out of there, and when I looked at it, it really freaked me out because the face. Did you see the face on it, Barbara?
I did, clearly.
Yes. All right, so when I seen the face, I didn't know the backstory. I had no idea. I was like, if that's a person wearing a mask, then that's a really weird mask. What is that? Well, I really didn't know the backstory. And when he came on to the show, he told me about how that girl had, acid dumped on her face. And that's the only thing that makes sense because the face is just weird looking. And that looks like something that I've actually seen in a dream. It just seems too real to me. Does it look real to you?
It does, absolutely. Just on the face of it, and after listening to him from last night, I don't know how I'm sure you could fake it if someone knew what they were doing, but it seems real.
Yeah, so if you have that kind of, that's the kind of stuff this guy's dealing with on a daily basis. I know that you believe in this tapping, but it's got to be some pretty powerful stuff. Maybe one night, or I'll get him to contact you. Maybe we can try it, because I wonder if it was I guess my point is that the fact that they were talking about they found a dress, right? They've been down in that basement before, but they dug up the dress, they dug up the bone, and then they were sitting around talking about it, thinking about what it could be. And in the back of his mind, he was thinking about the backstory of the house, and the next thing you know, an entity pops up. Now, we call that a haunting, right? But I wonder if we're not imprinting that, or if we're not the one, because we're, you were talking about energy earlier, because we're focusing our energy on that thing, that it pops up into our physical field.
I wouldn't put it past that having an effect on it. I mean, even to the extent that maybe the entity's energy is still there, but now you've seen the dress, you've heard the stories about what happened to her face, you're visualizing it. Are you sending energy to that for at least however much little time? And it brought it in. I don't know. But I mean, I know people go into the woods and they're afraid and they run into something unexplained and have a terrible experience because they went in there afraid in the first place. So it's not that much different.
The only thing I ever heard in the woods that freaked me out was children laughing, and it echoed all over the woods. That kind of freaked me out. But
you need to have Robin Moonshadow on talk to you about little people. She freaks me out.
Little people.
Yeah, she talks about, she goes through all the cultures all around the world and researches the lore of the little people through First Peoples and Native Americans and all the way back in Ireland. And I don't know if she's got a degree in this, but she freaks me out because she's got her information together and documented and chronicled enough to say, I've never even thought that they would be real, but why not?
Yeah, I've seen one when I was sleeping. I told you heard that story about the fat dwarf that was in my doorway, whatever the hell that thing was. Yeah, I saw it.
You were mentioning that just recently.
But what I'm trying to explain is that when I think about this stuff, I would be afraid because, like I told you, I laid at night. Is what we were talking about the other night or last night. I would lay in my bed at night and freak myself out. When people are sleeping and snoring. When I was a kid, my heart was just sitting there beating, thinking about all kinds of crazy stuff. And so I wonder if it wasn't me like projecting that into my doorway. But it doesn't mean that it's in my mind. Like, I don't believe that it's an illusion. My mind created it, right? Because I can't do that now. I've tried to do it. But I believe, like, once you really start focusing on something and you really, like, get your emotions involved. For example, guys, I'm rambling here, but for example, I was laying in bed thinking that someone was going to come up behind me for at least 30 minutes before I saw the thing. Heart beating fast, full of emotional fear. And then when I turned around and focused my eyes in the doorway, I saw it standing there, right? Now, maybe the mind is that powerful, but I highly doubt it. It was entirely too detailed, and I couldn't make up in my mind what that thing looked like. But that what he experienced in that video, that's what it reminds me of. Like, I think we imprint this stuff, or maybe when we focus our emotions and thoughts on something, that's how we pierce into the veil. I don't know.
Well, I think you hit it right on the head. So you were talking with the hypnotist gentleman about, what we resonate is what comes forward, right? So an entity that might not have enough juice to come into our reality on its own, with your fear and your imagination and seeing it and expecting it to come up behind you, maybe that's the juice that needs to materialize, because we draw to us what we resonate.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, how come you didn't win that $1 million, right? Because deep down, well, I'm never going to win $1 million, no matter how much I say I want it. Same difference.
You're not going to believe me when I say this, but I got people, like, I can get other people to win lottery tickets, but I can't win because of my subconscious. Like, when I started studying magic, I was doing experiments with it because I knew it was a subconscious thing. So I would buy, like, for my grandmother, she passed away, we'd go in on some scratch-offs or something. And I would tell her, congratulations, that's a good amount of money, and hand it to her before she scratched it off. And she'd just look at me like I was stupid, right? But for some reason, I could really project that onto her. But when I did it, I couldn't, even though there was just that doubt buried in my subconscious. And she did it like 3 or 4 times. One time she hit $500 on a scratch-off.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd keep you around.
Yeah, but what I was, here's the experiment that I did, and I learned this from Mind and Magic and Frederick Xavier, is you had to get into the mentality of abundance. In other words, that money was in your life all the time, and that you were just the luckiest person. And in other words, I had to feel emotionally what it was like to be that person, to have that kind of money. And so I asked her, before I went to buy the lottery tickets, my cousin Zach had a Camaro, which I sold him. I sold him the Camaro, and it was a really nice Camaro. But I never got to drive anything like that. And I said, you know what? If you let me take the Camaro, I'm pretty sure you're going to win. And so I got in the Camaro, and I started focusing on, like, it was my car, and this was my life, and this was, you know what I'm saying? I know it sounds stupid, right? But just imagining with extreme focus that this was how my life really was. I bought a couple of lottery tickets, and bam, I'm one of the luckiest dudes ever. Drop the car off, go back to my mundane life. Doesn't happen. It's very strange, very weird.
But you're right on, and that is if you think about, Dan Baker wrote What Happy People Know. And he said, we are literally hardwired to believe we will never be enough and we will never have enough. Those are the things we tend to resonate with. Those are things that I work on in my practice with my clients. Nothing I ever do for my mother is good enough and nothing ever works for them. So we work on those limiting beliefs. So it's resonating with that. You resonated with that for your grandmother. You attracted the right ticket. How does that work? I don't know. All I know is I see it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to heal, but I wish there was some type of tapping technique we could do to win tickets, right? Or to win money.
Actually, my tapping mentor does. She does contests for fun. She's the oldest. I shouldn't say oldest. She won't like that. She was originally with Gary Craig when he brought tapping out, and she's been teaching it over 20 years. And before she enters a contest, she taps away any excitement, good or bad. Her view is that excitement is not good to winning things. So if she's too happy about it, she taps that away. If she's too worried, and she's won cars, she's won trips, she's won money. She just wins all the time. It's just matter of fact.
What's her name again?
Valerie Liss.
Yeah, we need to hang out.
She taught us that. Yeah, hang out. Let's hang out with her. But let's go after the Cadillac, the Camaro.
Well, I believe so. Okay, this is another thing, and I'm glad we're talking about this because I figured you and I would get on all different kinds of topics, but I call it a magical formula, all right? Because I believe in real magic, and we do these things in our life. And if you just hear me out, you'll understand what I'm saying. For those listening that doubt these types of things, first off, you need to realize just how many negative things you're programming in your life. If you took 2 pieces of paper, which no one will ever do this, and I tried to do it and I couldn't, and every time you have a positive thought, you make a scratch on a paper. And every time you have a negative thought, it could be worry, it could be anger, it could be name calling, whatever. You make a scratch on a different sheet of paper. If you just do that for a few hours, most people are going to fill up that second paper just full of stuff, right? And I did, and I realized, I'm programming myself into this negative mindset. And then I got to looking into Barb Proctor and the nature of the subconscious, all that stuff. And I realized that we would create formulas. Every time this happens, right? So a formula would be, every time I go to this gas station, they always short me on ketchup or something. Every time. Or knowing my luck, this would happen. Meanwhile, when you meet people, and I learned this in sales, by the way, you always have 3 or 4 car salesmen that are killing it. When you meet people that are, they have an abundant life, they seem to be lucky all the time. They seem to have good things happening to them all the time. Their mentalities are different. They'll do a different formula. They'll say, well, I don't know why, but every time we need money, it just shows up. Or I just seem to find money lying around, or I just seem to fall into the right friendships and relationships. It's really weird. I guess I'm just lucky. That happens to them because they really believe that. So it's kind of like you're playing a game with your mind. It gets really tricky.
It's who they really are. They're not faking it. They're not, just say it, make it, fake it till you make it. It really is who they are. And if all you're doing is saying, well, that never works out for me, or guess what? That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, you bring it to you, right? You bring it to you.
You do.
And I would freak people out at work because I started studying magic when I worked for technical support. And, everybody there thought I was weird because I would draw little sigils and stuff on. So if you can imagine, we're sitting at a desk, and it's one of those cubicle jobs. God, never get one of those. If you can opt out of a cubicle job, opt out, because it makes you feel like a horse in a stall or a jail cell. Anyways,
it's the cube farm.
Yeah. So on both sides of the cubicle, we had whiteboards. Whiteboards that we could draw on with dry erase markers. And they were just for reminders, or your manager would come by and draw on them. And they were the actual walls. They weren't just boards on a wall. And I would draw sigils on there, sigils like to try to manifest things while I was at work. And one time I really didn't want to be there. And I drew a sigil for for something to happen, you know. I hope they're not listening, by the way. I'm sure one of them is.
Like somebody's going to pull the fire alarm or something.
But yeah, exactly. That's what I want, because we were running on technical, so many servers, all this stuff. Nobody wanted to be there that day. And so I would draw these little sigils, and I drew one, and I was trying to learn about how to, you know, focus on it and then let it get buried into the subconscious, right? And then forget about it. If you can really forget about it, then for some reason it would manifest. Well, I drew one for something to happen technically, and I kind of put Mercury in there because Mercury is, you know, corresponds with those type of things, technology and stuff like that, right? So I don't want to get too deep into it because it sounds really weird, but I ended up getting on a phone call with what we called one of those crazy customers that call every third day to tell you that you're ruining their life because your company's such a piece of crap, and they don't even know how to reset their phone. So I got caught up into that call immediately afterwards, and as soon as I got caught up, I forgot about it, right? I forgot about the sigil, and bam, everything shut down. Like the screens went down, everything went down. We had a little red emergency light that would go up. The phone systems didn't go down, and boy, she wasn't happy. I said, look, I can't get into your account, so I don't know what I can do for you right now. I can't help you. Our systems are down. And it didn't even dawn on me. I'd forgotten about it so much that I didn't remember till the next day that I drew it because I was so wrapped up in that phone call. But when I went back to my desk the next day, there was that sigil trying to knock things out technically. Then they gave us the option. You can go home with pay, or you can use sick pay, or you can use one. We had these extra day things. And I was thinking, that's when I started realizing, okay, man, was that a coincidence? And you have to be scientific about it, right? You can't be stupid and just believe it because it happened one time, because that's not logical. So you keep testing it, just like Robert Monroe did in his first book. And after a while, you start to see that it's real, that it happens. But anyways, I'm just rambling. But if you can do that, if you can do that, what else can you do?
Carolyn May says that if we knew how powerful we really were, we would never leave the house.
Right. See, I don't leave the house for nothing unless I have to.
You don't leave the house. You don't leave that street, right?
No, it's a trap out there. All you got to see, I got to be careful what I say, but all you got to do is one headlight. That's all it takes, one tail light, and you go in a tailspin for the day. You got a tail light out, buddy. Oh, you weren't wearing your seatbelt. You got a crack on your mirror.
The way you look.
Yeah. You know, it's like as soon as you get out into the system or the city, that's why I like staying out in the middle of nowhere in a shack, not doing nothing. I don't have to bother with it.
The evil scientist with his tubes and his cables.
But see, that's something that I realized too, that, you know, I realize that system is there, but I still have that program running in my mind that, you know, I'm going to fall into the snare of the law somehow. Something's going to go out on my car. A flat's going to happen. I got 4 flats in 1 week. 4 flats in 1 week. And that's when I started looking into curses and stuff, because I just had the worst luck. And I'm thinking, somebody's cursing me. And then you think to yourself for a second, is somebody cursing me? Right? And you start playing this game with your mind, which you got to be careful of. You'll know, because the worst luck in the world will happen to you. And I found out that it was pretty much just a bad planetary alignment. Not some dark wizard in a tower that hated me because I broke up with him in high school or something, you know. But
so do you smudge or anything like that to clear the space when that starts cascading like that?
I ward my, oh God, you're getting into stuff I don't want to tell everybody about, right? Because then
turnabout's fair play.
Well, you know what they do, right? They make YouTube videos and they say, this guy's a witch. He's a witch, and he's on there talking about witchcraft. You better wash yourself with the blood. Now, you know what I mean.
Get yourself right.
Right. But no, I actually would go to my property and work my way back. So I'd go to the north, south, east, and west of my property. But I would do what some people would call a Christian prayer, or just a Hebrew prayer that I learned from one of the books that Jeff Harmon was talking about. And then I would work my way back to the house and then do it that way. But, to be honest with you, I mean, a real witch does that stuff all the time. I'm lazy. I forget. I don't want to do that stuff every day. I'll forget about it. But when you forget about it, that's when stuff slips in. Or maybe you, because you were messing with those things, that slipped in. I don't know. These are things that go through my mind 24/7, Barbara.
No wonder you only sleep 5 hours a day.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I sleep
Well,
about...
I have to have a chat with the hawks over here because we live close to a wildlife preserve, and I feed all the birds. I've got tons of feeders out there, and the hawks will come and eat here a little too often. And so I'll do the salt, and I'll do the little prayer or whatever, and I'll say, now look, be reasonable. I understand circle of life, but you cannot come here every day. And they'll back off for about 6 or 8 weeks, and I'll not pay attention to it. And pretty soon I'll start seeing piles of feathers in the yard. I'm like, hey. So it just goes in the cycle.
Yeah. I want to figure this out too, though. I want to say, so the first thing that we should do, I want to get back on topic here because I'm being selfish, talking about me, and you're spending time with us here in the night. So when I have, like when I have an issue that happens or I have some type of trauma, the first thing I need to do is, what'd you say? Try to feel where you can feel the pressure from it, like on your body.
Yeah, when you know when you're feeling upset or you're feeling something's going on, right? You might get I have one client, everything was in the occipital lobe at the back of her head. And the minute that was going on, she knew something was up. So she would pay attention, what was happening. She'd feel it right there. It always physically manifests. That's one thing. Our body feels the emotion, and it's instantaneous. Then our mind knows what that emotion is. So it's not, we get the emotion in our head and we feel it in our body. It's the other way, which really surprised me. And then keep that focus. Maybe that's a pain back there. And then I'll show you how to tap. And you just tap and keep tapping. Keep your focus on that. Don't drift. And usually 3-4 times at the most, you'll get it down to probably a 2 or below, unless it's just over the top. Then it'll just take longer.
Does it put you in a trance, like we were talking about with Albert?
No, but I have had clients tell me that it's a very alert kind of meditation, but it's not really a trance. You're active, and when I'm working with my clients, I'm tapping with them, and they'll say something, and they'll start laughing, and you can't break it. It's very flexible. So you're not really in a trance, but you become more and more relaxed. And all of a sudden they're like, if you hadn't told me it was an 8 and I told you my stomach hurt, I wouldn't believe it that I was that way 5 minutes ago.
All right. So I'm trying to think, when that stuff happens to me, is it like the adrenaline? So when you get adrenaline rush, I feel that kind of stuff when it's over. I feel it in my stomach, in my solar plexus. A lot,
right?
And sometimes in my neck, I'll feel. But mainly, it's always like I'll feel the rush or the pain or the fright in my solar plexus. Then my heart will speed up, and then when it's over with, my stomach will hurt. It'll clench up. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I would even start tapping when it begins, so you don't have to even let it escalate high enough to get to the point where your stomach finishes out by clenching up. You can stop it in its tracks, and that way it doesn't take hold and it doesn't start basically impressing into your mind.
Huh. That's really cool. And you are also, you got a Facebook group too. Tell me about what that's about.
Oh, I've got my metaphorical archaeology page. The whole thing is that's the story of our lives. So we go digging through the story of your lives to find out, how did you manifest this thing in your life today? And people will, ask me questions on there, or I'll help them. But I work with people all over the world. All my stuff is over video because the people are doing the work themselves. I'm just guiding them.
Yeah, but what I mean is, what are you trying to help them find? Like were their ancestry or what's going on with them?
In their own history, right? So they'll say something like, I don't know why I keep picking this kind of guy, right? I always pick the same guy, and we'll go back and we'll start digging. Okay, how did this happen? They'll start telling me the story, and I'll say, well, where do you think that began? Where do you feel that? Where did that begin? And they go, that reminds me of in 6th grade when, this guy made fun of me in front of all my classmates or something. What do you feel like now? And they will feel the physical reaction of that they were embarrassed, And it was the same type of guy that did it to him. And they'll tap that down and we'll take that layer off. And they'll say, okay, go back and tell me the story again. Do you feel anything coming back up? Well, this time I remember that someone else said something. What invariably they'll remember new details. And so we'll just keep tapping until that's all neutral, and we'll just keep working through the issue.
Yeah, that is cool, because I would like to look into see, I think I got some stuff in my past that's a generational curse. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, do you believe in that? I don't
sins of the father?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to call it a curse. I just think it's, like, Amelia Ian Karras was the first person that really turned me on to this, because I used to think it was extremely woo-woo. God, we got to find another word for woo-woo, because that's getting old, isn't it? But I would think it was extremely just out there, right? Look into my ancestry and figure out what's there and make it go away. She called them like contracts. Like, you have soul contracts that you're here to work something out that's been through your ancestry and your life and all of these different things. Well, what's it going to hurt? I've always looked at it like, I'll do this prayer or meditation. It's not going to kill me. What's it going to hurt? It could only help. So I'm willing to try anything. But when I tried this, I did what's called a contract revocation, where you make an announcement to the universe, your ancestors, and everybody that's involved, that whatever you came here to do, that you've worked it out, or you're just done with it. You're done with that karma. You're here to do something else. You're making a statement. You don't want to do that anymore. What happened after that was, it's really personal. It's almost kind of private, but I guess I can talk to you about it. I mean, I got a listener / guest on the show. So, yeah. So what happened is I left after that. I started leaving things that I just could not stand in my life. As scary as it was, things like my job, all of the comforts I had, the things that were destroying my soul. You know what I'm talking about? The cubicle job,
right.
Abusive friendships. And I made an announcement to what I really wanted. Okay. And after I did this contract revocation, or whatever you call it, I could feel it. Now, it's hard to believe, but I could feel something leaving. And I called Amelia the next day and told her about it. And I was full of fear. I was so scared, because I'd never done anything like that in my life, ever. Because I'd never told the world, the job system, the corporate structure, whatever you want to call this thing, that I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. And when you got a kid, it's really scary. Yeah. And she would reassure me. She said, look, you either believe that the soul is there to help you and guide you, or you don't. Right? So you either believe it or you don't. She was excited. She was happy and screaming, jumping up and down, saying she's glad. Well, either way, what started happening was, as we started getting more traffic to the network, some of the things on the network that I didn't like, we pushed away. And long story short, I got new equipment. We got new hosts. Just stuff started happening. Things like other people came along, like you, that really listen and support the show. It was just incredible, right? But I got to tell you, Barbara, even this day, there's something in the back of my mind that still says, maybe it's just a coincidence. I don't know why, but I can't get that out of my head.
Well, because you're not, you're not just doing, pardon me one second, Joe.
Well, I'm not, I'm
you're
just
not doing
normal.
wishful thinking. You're looking at things realistically. And if you can't find another logical reason for it and it's working, I'd say go with that.
Yeah, I think, I'll tell you, we'll talk about this later a little bit more. I don't want to be rude, but a little bit more when I'm like doing my rants or whatever you guys call them.
I like your rant.
Yeah.
I'll just listen.
But I'm starting to believe that that thing that I walked away from when I was a kid called faith, right? When I said faith was a bad thing, it doesn't make sense, you shouldn't have it, you should really just know. But I'm honestly coming back full circle and thinking, well, faith in something is better than, not having faith in anything. And when you really have it, it starts to work. But anyways, also, I want to tell you guys, too, because I just went over the break from all this rambling. Tomorrow night, we're going to have Ramsey Dukes, also known as Lionel Snell, is going to talk about his magical experiences. He actually did the Abramelin the Mage ritual and wrote a diary about it, about what happened. And we're going to discuss those types of things. Also, egregores. It'll be a cool show. We'll be right back with Barbara.
This is Corbin, son of the one and only Joe Roop, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
Storm's coming.
If this were a dictatorship, it'd be a heck of a lot easier. Just so long as I'm the dictator.
We have infiltrated every level of its infrastructure.
Who did you leave him with? Your people?
Do you actually predict dictatorship and economic disaster for the United States?
You see, in their last moments, people show you who they really are.
The truth is, there is something terribly wrong with this country.
You'll have to choose.
A brand new internet television network is rocking the airwaves with a whole new genre, sci-fi, merging science and spirituality to give us answers to the greatest mysteries of creation. Tune in to sci-spy.tv, SCISPI.TV. Discover progressive news shows hosted by best-selling authors, speakers, and experts in many fields. Right now, for only $5.55 a month, you will have access to over 20 brand new, never-before-seen shows with fascinating content and brand new revelations. Subscribe today to SciSpy.tv. That's SCISPI.tv.
You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
We all have that story to tell in our lives. The winds were howling. The ground shook. You could hear rushing water. And then, history repeats itself. When there's no power, refrigeration fails, stores with their shelves stripped bare, ATMs can't operate, deliveries stop. Then what? These events can last days or weeks. You need a plan. In statements made during recent interviews, FEMA Administrator Brock Long has repeatedly urged all Americans to understand three truths. FEMA is broke, the system is broken. If this is the new normal, Americans can't rely on federal cavalry when disaster strikes. Don't get caught out in the elements empty-handed. Prepare with us by going to preparewiththefringe.com and get your 2-week food supply. 92 servings, 8 food varieties with 25-year shelf life. Normally $137, now only $75. Or get a month's supply, normally $247, now only $147, shipped in one business day. Just go to preparewiththefringe.com or call 888-440-7931. That's 888-440-7931. Get this great offer and be prepared while it lasts.
If you are interested in occult subjects, psychic abilities, symbols, tarot, witchcraft, magic, or anything similarly related, my book Occult Arcana will provide you with a truly objective overview of these topics and more. Written in anything but modern language, Occult Arcana was compiled to help researchers balance their quest for a better understanding of the meanings of and in such studies. Occult Arcana is available in softcover and digital form from www.thesecretteachings.info. All copies can also be autographed if requested. That's Occult Arcana from www.thesecretteachings.info.
In your face, all over the place. We're online 24/7. 24/7. You're listening to the hottest internet station.
You know, food was different 60 years ago. It was minimally processed, free of pesticides. It was nourishing and healthful for your body. Today, GMOs, pesticides, herbicides, and heavy processing have depleted the nutrition of our food supply, which takes a toll on our health and energy. It's harder than ever to get the right nutrition. That's what Life Change Tea is meant to counteract. Our specially blended, powerful herbal formulas can give you more energy without caffeine. It's a mild cleanse, a mild daily detox. A good detox can help revive and bring back the energy of your youth. GetTheTea.com is the website. It'll cleanse you from the inside out with this herbal proprietary formula. Go to GetTheTea.com. There's no fillers, no GMOs. It's organic. Not available in stores. You must go to their website, GetTheTea.com. And their supplements are a great way to maintain your health. Read the testimonials on the website. Go to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Are UFOs real? Are aliens visiting Earth? Are governments around the world hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO Seekers, official partner of The Fringe FM, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Join us as we investigate locations like Area 51 by subscribing on YouTube at youtube.com/UFO Seekers.
Hey, is that a new music app?
Yeah, check it out. Surfer Music Discovery. It links to thousands of online stations, but the twist is you see the song names and artists that are now playing live.
That's different. No guessing. Looks like a waterfall of music.
So many formats. Rock, oldies, country, R&B, jazz, and a whole lot more.
How's that spelled?
Surfer. S-U-R-F-R.
Is it expensive?
It's free. No need to sign up or sign in.
Get the Surfer Music app free from Google Play or the App Store.
Boy, I like it. Man, I like that bumper music way better. I might start using that one for my Night Rider comeback, you know. The more dramatic, the better. We're here with Barbara Charlton. And, hey, Barbara, is there, like, if whoever's listening and they've had some type of trauma in their life, doesn't have to be paranormal, but is there a way, how can they get a hold of you if they want to try this out or maybe see if it works on them?
Yeah, they can go a couple of ways. They can go to my Facebook page, Metaphorical Archaeology LLC, and there's an email me button, or they can come straight through email. It's barb.eft, Edward Frank Tom, @gmail.com.
Yeah, all right. So if you guys if you want to try this out, and I'm gonna when I find some time, I'm gonna do this too because I want that damn knocking to go away.
Let's work on that. That would be fun.
I would love it to go away because after this is one of those things that I'm going to give up on. And you guys know me. You know that when there's some type of mystery that I really try to pursue it and try to figure it out, and I will till I'm dead. But this is starting to haunt me a little bit. You know, I can get over being scared once or jump out of my skin every now and then, right? But when it happens enough, it starts to wear on you, honestly. It starts to get a little bit stressful.
Well, and then think about it. Now you're at a different stage of it where it's been happening and now you're starting to expect it. So again, how much of your energy are you putting out there as well? So that something might have been random before might be a little more consistent now.
We had J.D. Lewis that was on the show before this broadcast, and, she talked to me about a lot of these things, and what I realized is that a lot of people are going through these things, and they have experiences in their life that it's really hard to talk about, no matter how accepting you think this community is to whatever you might say or you might have to say, some things are just hard to talk about. And then and I see why, and I totally see why. And I'm not saying there's not frauds, and I'm not saying there's not fakes out there. There definitely is. We all know this. There definitely is. And it's important that, we document as much stuff as possible and call out as much stuff as possible so we can get to the truth. I mean, what's right is right. But at the same time, the mudslinging stuff, it's like, that's what makes people afraid to come out and say, hey, I had this experience, or I had an out-of-body experience, or I think I saw a demon or something like that. Because if they come out in public and say it, then they're forever labeled. Even if they only say it one time. I've seen that happen to a lot of people. I don't think you can't tap that away. I think that's probably something you have to tell yourself, I'm willing to tell my story now. Or I could be wrong.
Well, you can almost, Joe, honestly, if we can define it, I can have something. Let's say it was so terrible. Let's say they were attacked publicly. It took off on internet wildfire, right? And they just don't even want to show their face. They don't ever want to think about that again. We have ways that we sneak up on the thing. We'll say, okay, don't go through the details. You've been through the details. If you allow yourself to revisit that whole scenario, what would your number be? Right? And they'd be like, 1 to 10, 0 to 10. They'd be like 40.
Like a pain level meter, 1 to 10. How scared were you? Okay.
Right. Yep. And that's where we measure. They call it a subjective unit of distress, or a SUDS. And so that's how we get a baseline. And then after we tap, we compare and we reevaluate each time so we can watch where things are going. So we'll say, don't think about it. If you did, what would it be? And it's usually over the top. And we tap on that because people are just like too overwhelmed with it to even want to go there. So we desensitize it and bring it down gently because it is brutal. It's brutal between the different camps, this paranormal group and, the Sasquatch group is fighting with the Dogman group and they don't like the UFOs and they don't like the abductees. And it's going to get worse because I think they're all converging. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of that outing before it gets better, I think.
I think I get afraid, Barbara, to tell certain things on here. I'm not like, there's there's a ton of bigger radio names than me, but I've always wondered what if they're afraid to talk about certain things. Like, are they afraid to talk about some of the more important paranormal activities that's happened in their life because they're public figures and they're worried about what people are going to think or what they're going to say? Take Art Bell, for example, like how many times he retired, or that time when he said someone was shooting at him. If you got on the, like, Bell Gab or whatever, people were ripping him apart, and what if that really happened to him? His whole, like, half his fan base told him that, he's just making that up. Nobody's out there threatening his family. It's not really happening. Meanwhile, this guy probably could have really been going through some type of trauma. He probably did have a few stalkers. God know we knew he did. I don't know about government agents trying to keep him quiet, but we see that. That's all I'm saying. We see it on TV. We see it in podcasting, and we don't want to come out and tell our stories because you got guys like Joe Rogan, and I'm still a Joe Rogan fan. I'll listen to the show. But a long time ago, he would talk about these things. But now if you bring it up on his show, he makes this weird face where he crunches his shoulders up and starts looking around like you're an idiot, And there's
somebody up above tapped him on the shoulder and said, "Knock it
so?
off." I do, because what are they worried about losing? They're worried about losing eyes and ears, and they're worried about losing advertisers. One or the other.
Yeah, because something did change, right? There's a narrative going on that's telling us all to shut up about these things. Mm-hmm. There's a modern day book burning happening on social media and YouTube and Facebook and other places like that, where you get your channel shut down, you get demonetized, or people can't see what you're posting just because you're talking about certain subjects. And when I first started listening to Rogan, he would talk about UFOs, out-of-body experiences, You name it, right? Now, when you bring those things up, he turns it into a big joke. And a lot of his friends that used to come on that show don't go on there. I mean, they go on there every now and then, but not like they used to. And I don't want that to happen. And we got a lot of mudslinging going on, too, because some people have been called out for some of their stuff that they've done. And I don't want people to be afraid to come out and tell their story anymore. And I'm concerned about it because I think that's what's happening, right? It's okay to talk about conspiracy and stuff, which is fine. I talk about that, too. But not the paranormal, not ufology, not any of this stuff anymore, because there's entirely too much judgment, too much stuff to worry about when you come out and say these things. What happened to the Art Bell era, you know? Go ahead.
You there?
Yeah, I'm here. Go ahead. Awkward pause.
I think that does happen. And so someone like you who's creating your own network, you know, you're running your own deal, where do you get to the tipping point where someone's going to be able to look at you and try to pressure you? And that's going to be a decision that when you get bigger and more successful, you're going to have to face. You know, right now you can call the shots, but those guys can't.
Yeah, some nights we'll have, like, I'll look on the server just to see, you know, I'll open the phones up and I'll look on the server. And I mean, we don't have thousands of listeners, but there are some nights when we get a couple of thousand all together. And, you know, have you ever been in a room full of 2,000 people? Right? That's a lot of people.
Trade show.
Right. So you go in a room full of 2,000 people and it's like you grab a mic, and I can see why sometimes they don't want to call in and talk about it. And politics is one thing, but talking about crazy stuff is different. When you say, hey, if you've ever had this experience, give us a call, you know, and it's like crickets sometimes. Other nights, they'll blow the phones up when you're talking about either politics or it's a psychic reading or something. But I think people are afraid to tell their story. And I feel like I'm the one standing in a crowd of 1,000 to 2,000 people, not, you know, making it awkward, or they're just too scared to talk about it. The people in the chat, they'll you know, talk about it here and there. But where do we draw the line where we shouldn't talk about these things anymore? Because I got a deathly fear, Barbara, that I'm going to talk about something and just ruin my entire radio show, because I'm not afraid to talk about anything. All the good, all the bad, everything I'm embarrassed about, all of that stuff. I put it out there. And I don't know if maybe I'm making a mistake by doing that.
I don't know. I think that's why you draw the listeners that you do. I mean, if you look on the Discord chat and what people talk about in there, there's actually a huge level of trust that's built up among the people that are out there. But I gave a presentation when I was selling real estate to a group of, it wasn't that big, but 30 or 40 people. And I was talking about sellers' disclosures. And I said, if your house is haunted, do you have to disclose that to potential buyers? I
think you should. What did you tell?
Well, it's a legal thing. So in Minnesota, which is where I was licensed, you don't tell them, because if you tell them it's haunted and then they buy it because they want something like that and nothing happens, they take you to court or mediation. Vice versa. If you declare it's not haunted and they move in and it is, you're in trouble there. Well, what happened out of that little statement, it hijacked the whole meeting. And for the next half an hour, at least 80% of the people in that room told their stories about, you know, we lived in a turn-of-the-century house, and when we were little kids, we had to hold on to the banister because something would push us at the top of the stairs, and Mom and Dad didn't believe me. I mean, everybody almost had a story, and I bet the ones that didn't talk did either. The people are silenced.
See, there you go. When we were kids, something would push us. I'm telling you, there's something going after our children, and its job, I'm going to figure out what the hell this thing is. And hopefully you guys, some of you people that astral travel are better at it than me. Hopefully you can figure out what this thing is. Because these some bitches got to go down. You know, I saw a video, whatever it was, that Coast to Coast put up not too long ago, where you could actually see the shadow kind of phase in and phase out, and shoved a kid. This kid was probably 6, 7 years old, little bitty kid, right? Just walking down through this tree line, and it came through and shoved him down. He didn't fall down.
I saw that.
He was shoved down. You could tell he was shoved.
It was like someone was behind him and just pushed him, and he kind of reacted going backwards and then forward.
There's a lot of ways you can analyze those videos. people say, well, it's fake or it's photoshopped. Well, that wasn't a fake video. The reason why you can tell, there's a lot of things. The way he was shoved, the way he fell, the way when he got up, immediately got up and took off running, right? Like if you were walking beside somebody and they shoved you, the way he was shoved, you wouldn't just get up and run for your life because you were freaked out and then Photoshop it out. Something shoved him that wasn't there. And that happens all the time. So, yeah, you definitely should tell somebody that, I think, if you're selling your house, that those kinds of things are in your house, in your home, that, you know, hey, this stuff happens. I'd be pissed off if I moved into a house, paid $250,000, $200,000 to find out it was haunted. But that's kind of a touchy subject. Well, what are you going to do?
I think you should tell them I think it's unethical not to tell them that things happen to you because, you know, if you've got something awful living in the back of your property, I want to know that. But tell them there is no, representation that this is going to happen to anyone else. You just need to know that this is the history. But the lawyers don't see it that way.
Well, that's really cool. So both of you and I have been in sales, so you've experienced that realm. That's really fun. I thought about getting into real estate, but I can't wait that long. I'm not that good. I just tell people, just buy it, just get the damn thing. Come on. But,
well, my you'd be good at it. You were in painting. You know how to look at a house.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if you come to Saline County here in Arkansas, there's probably about 400 homes that sold brand new that I painted. This is tonight, by the way, it's Lighting the Void, bring on a listener guest and brag about yourself, Joe show, I guess.
You see why my clients like me, I let them talk, right?
Yeah. Well, you're definitely easy to open up to. I like that. You're kind of like Mary, really easy to talk to. And it doesn't seem like, you have an agenda to push your message or your beliefs or even a product. It's like you really want to help people because you believe in this technique, this tapping. That it's the first time I heard about it. I know people's jaw drop when they hear things like that, but there are things I don't know about, and tapping was one of them. I had no clue about it.
I have people that will pay me, but when I see something that I think they're an underserved group or someone that needs kind of someone to put their arm around them. I mean, that's who I am. I've got a strong teacher archetype and I've got a strong, protector, fixer, so it's like you say, you have people that donate and support the show, but if not, you're still going to be there for them. So it's kind of that same feeling.
Yeah, I try to, but I can't do what other people can do, Barbara. Like I've seen other radio hosts do shows and they got Twitter up, they got 4 chat rooms, they got a camera going, and somehow or another they can carry on or maybe they're faking it. I don't know, but I just don't see how you can have an intimate conversation with a guest or be 100% focused on what you're talking about while you're talking to 90 other people. It doesn't work that way for me. So all of my Twitter followers are very hardly earned, but it's one of those kind of things where I'd rather talk to you about your experience and focus on that and just glance at what everybody else comments because I'm hoping they call in so I can figure out what's going on. Like there's things that it's hard to get out of people. Like the experience you had when you were 14 years old. Do you feel like you can talk about that with anybody right now?
Yeah, it doesn't bother me. I mean, that's one thing I think I'm very fortunate.
Now, I don't mean me. Look, hold on a second.
No.
I mean anybody. Like you walked in a gas station and you met somebody and never met them before in your life. You could talk to them about it.
Yeah, that wouldn't bother me in the least.
See, maybe you should do a radio show, Barbara.
Well, I'm already telling how many of your closest friends, right?
Yeah, because when I go out, I can't talk to people here about these types of things. When they were doing the disclosure, nobody would listen to me.
You're in small town, rural. I mean, I grew up in small town, rural, but I've lived in every sitting that there was. I just got to the point where I'm just going to be me. I'm tired of trying to be this or that for anybody else. And I really found what I'm supposed to be doing. And yes, I do all this other stuff. And some people will go, yeah, well, that's Barb, but we love her anyway. And other ones really get it. So, one way or another, they don't like it. Okay.
Were you brought up religious when you were a kid?
I was brought up Catholic. And so, I went through the whole communion, confirmation, all that stuff. But I organized religion, at least the way I was brought up in it, just never resonated with me. I have a very strong faith and belief in God. And one of my favorite, I do Oracle card decks readings for fun, and they're all ascended masters. So I might get up Ganesh from the Hindus. I might get up the Holy Spirit. I might have Michael the Archangel. I think we can learn from all of these different entities, whether they're walk the earth or whether they're part of a group that believes enough in them that gives them a personality. And that's the way I come at it. So, yeah, I'm not going to church. Besides, around here, they'll say, "Come to my church," and I'll say, "Well, I'm Catholic," and they go, "Oh." So I'm pretty safe,
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Like, I'm trying to figure out, a lot of people have had that experience. They've been brought up in a religion. Catholicism, from my experiences, it's kind of a beautiful religion in a way. Like, it's very decorated. It's very pretty. The rituals are very cool. I can definitely see how someone could devote a spiritual life to it. But there's some freaky things that goes on in the church that bother me. Not to mention this, like when I started studying the occult, I started figuring out like why these Catholics wear these certain colors and certain symbols. It's really freaky stuff. And I know Leo Zagami gets into that, but when you get older, you start questioning things. You start thinking like, why am I like this dude with a funny hat? Why do I got to tell him all of my sins so I can be absolved and go to heaven? Like, this just doesn't make sense to me. It's not logical. I don't think it's logical. I'm not trying to offend anybody.
Why does a man who is not allowed to marry and have a family counsel people? Someone's going to get mad at me, okay, but why is that the guy counseling you on premarital counseling? You've never experienced this. I don't get that.
I've never done a confession, though. I've always wondered what that was like to sit in a confession booth. I might do that one time just to see what it's like. And I'm talking about...
you have this image that they don't know who you are, but they do.
Do you have to be a member of the church to do that, or can you just walk in, or you have to be a Catholic to do that, don't you?
Well, you should be a Catholic because they're going to kind of know that you don't know the routine, bless me, Father, blah, blah, blah. But you can be a Catholic from anywhere and go to any Catholic church and do that.
Okay. Well, maybe you can send me everything that you got to do so I can go in there like all covert, like co-op, covert, like a spy. I just want
the guy with the Ray-Bans and the trench coat. I know that guy. Let him in.
Yeah, I want to do that. I've never done it. I've seen it in the movies, and I always thought it was kind of cool because it's dark and mysterious, and you're talking to this guy through a screen, and he can't really see you. But I want to go in there and just really freak him out. Like, start when I was 6, 7 years old, tell him everything I ever did, and then at the end, just tell him, by the way, I'm not Catholic. I don't believe in any of this stuff. But you sure did make me feel better. Thank you. And then walk out. Good to get that off my chest.
Here's the thing. You get people that work the system like in anything else. They go to confession and then they go to church and then they go off and do the rotten things they do and cheat their customers during the week and then they run through the whole thing again. I don't think that's the way it was intended.
Right. I can't believe you've stayed the whole show. We only got a few minutes left. You know that? I can't believe you stayed here that long. I got to do this more often. Like if, with listeners and stuff, listeners that have a story or something like that has a profession that has to do with the topics that we do, just something like that. Because it's really cool to talk to you guys. Everybody wants you to talk to the big name guests, like have Bob Barker on the show so you can get as many listeners as possible or something. But I'd rather get to know you guys sometimes, honestly. That's what I opened up Friday nights for. I liked it when you had
Crow on. Crow was really interesting to listen to. I mean, you can tell he thinks about things very deeply before he makes a decision. He's not just making it up on the fly. He's very serious about it. But he's fun to listen to. He's intriguing.
Yeah, I remember the first time he came on the show, and he said, well, what I do is I go out of the body and I go head hunting. We take heads. And I was like, take heads. What are you talking about? And at first, I didn't know what he's talking about, but he's such a frequent astral traveler that he became I guess you could say like a real life spiritual warrior. And he still to this day hasn't told me the details about whatever martial art it was where he learned how to do these things. Like, he's still pretty secretive about it. He doesn't tell me what the name of it is, right? And he's been working a lot here lately, so I haven't been able to talk with him. But yeah, and by the way, too, just before we go into our last break here, I want to let you guys know, because a lot of people have been asking, is that Dan Lopez is doing a lot better than he was doing. And we all miss him. We all miss the conversations that we had here. I miss talking to him. I really do. But he's in a kind of like a place in his life right now where he can't stay up late and have 3-4 hour conversations anymore. You know, he's got different priorities, I guess, but he still and always will be a part of the team, a member of this team, a member of the station, one of the biggest host on the station, and maybe one night he will come back and talk to us, maybe in the future. But I'm just letting you all know, because I get so many questions about Dan and how he's doing. He's doing a lot better. He's doing a lot better.
I hope he does come back. I'm glad he's doing better.
Yeah, he's doing much better. But listen, guys, don't forget, tomorrow night we are going to talk about magic. We're going to get back into the occult, and we're going to speak with Ramsey Dukes, and we're going to talk about egregores, and if he'll let me talk about it, his Abramelin the Mage experience and his ritual that he went through, and maybe give away some of the stuff that actually happened. But we'll be right back. We got a few minutes left here with Barbara.
David Oman with HouseAtTheEndOfTheDrive.com. You're listening to KTLK, The Fringe FM.
Lighting the Void is proud to announce Mind and Magic's Protection and Defense Course for protection from magical and psychic attacks. This is not a joke. Magic practitioners are on the rise, and with that comes attacks from baneful or black magicians that try to harm or hurt others for their own selfish reasons. If you are not a believer in psychic attacks, then this isn't for you. If you are, and you want the power to defend yourself and your family and home, then I highly suggest you grab Freighter Xavier's Protection and Defense Course. In this course, you will learn how to tell if you are under attack from a natural source or if an individual is attacking you, the 4 forms of curses and attacks, how to remove self-imposed curses, the correct way to cleanse your home from negativity or malevolent entities, how to make your own holy water, what you should always keep near or under your bed, herbs that banish negativity and promote purity, the most powerful banishing rituals on the planet, and for those that seem to want to harm you the most, how to put your enemies in a hell pit of their own making. You can also learn protection against shadow people and other entities. Or are you just in a bad planetary alignment? Even how to get rid of an enemy using a tic-tac box. It does not matter what your faith or belief is, this will work. Click the banner on the website at lightingthevoid.com or go to lightingthevoid.com/Xavier.
Presenting a revolutionary new book that is a multimedia experience. Rise Up, Awakening Through Revelation is a 10-day adventure to sacred sites around the globe. Along the way, we explore spiritual revelations and scientific phenomenon that explain the greatest mysteries of creation. This book features live interviews with authors referenced throughout the book, as well as audio downloads of initiations, activations, and meditations. Rise Up is available with full-color illustrations at SuzanneRossWellness.com. SuzanneRoss wellness.com. Get your copy today.
AncientLifeOil.com. For your CBD needs, just remember, AncientLifeOil.com. What does it do for the body, you ask? I can't say to the people in the suits that run the industry. Big Pharma is all over CBD because of its well, you know what I mean. Research the benefits of CBD on Google and come back to ancientlifeoil.com and purchase your CBD today. Non-GMO and all organic. You don't want to be using a petroleum product. You want to be using the cleanest CBD product on the market. ancientlifeoil.com. We even have CBD for your pet. Help your pet's discomfort. Help your discomfort. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Newly reduced prices to pass off the savings to the most important person. You. ancientlifeoil.com. And one more thing, we have topicals too. So if you have joint pain and some different issues that are going on in your body, you might want to use a topical. Think about it. ancientlifeoil.com.
Say in your mind, say to yourself, I am more than my physical body, because I am more than physical matter. I can perceive that which is greater than the physical world.
The Fringe FM isn't just a radio station. We also provide services for all your audio production needs. If you are interested in live radio or pre-recorded podcasts, we're here to help. We even do audio enhancements and voiceovers if needed. If you want to do a podcast or live radio show and even want the option to syndicate on terrestrial radio, from simple audio file enhancement to live production and call screening, we have you covered. We have worked with some of the best professionals in the business in order to provide coaching instruction for content creation, show structure, and more. Contact The Fringe Digital Media for more at info@thefringe.fm. That's info@thefringe.fm. Or call 501-777-5631 for a consultation.
We're at the very last section of the show here, and tonight we're doing it's a little different than we usually do. It's kind of the same, but tonight we're talking with Barbara Charlton, who's also is my guest, but she's also a listener of the show, and we've been talking about paranormal trauma and paranormal experiences and how to heal it with tapping and techniques, and we've gotten into all kinds of different discussions tonight, and it's been a lot of fun. But since we only got like a little bit amount of time left here, Barbara, you were trying to ask me something during the break, and it sounded like a big question, and maybe it's because we only got a few minutes left. But what were you asking me?
So it seems to me that a lot of these different areas are converging. So, for example, in Afterlife Revolution, Whitney Strieber talks about how guests up at his cabin would visit and they would see a deceased relative appear to them, and they'd come back and tell Anne and Whitley about it. And after a while, Anne would say, the visitors are coming tonight, because every time that happened, the visitors were there, the ETs or whoever it was, that would come and see him. Well, he was trying to figure out do whatever aliens that is, or whoever those entities are, were they presenting something friendly to ease their way in? And so what does that mean for afterlife, the near-death experience, and aliens and UFOs? It's like, are they all a part and a piece of the same thing?
I 100% believe that they are. And it was really cool. The one time we did get a chance to talk to Whitley Strieber on the show, I thought we were going to talk about, his experience with that, but we got more into, when his wife passed away, and the book that he wrote about that. And the really cool thing, and I just want to tell everybody what you're talking about, is that he brought up is that he had more questions than he did answers. Back when he wrote Communion, he would talk about just horrifying. God, if you ever read it, it's a scary experience of an abduction. I would never want to go through something like that. But I didn't know what I didn't know about the guy, which I really got a tremendous amount of respect for him, even more, is that he was doing work like through the Gurdjieff work. He'd been to the Monroe Institute and done a lot of those techniques and practices. And so Whitley Strieber is not just some guy trying to sell books. He's trying to figure out what's going on. You know, he's passionate about these types of things, just like we are. And he's had some crazy experiences. And with the aliens and up there at the cabin with all that stuff that's happened, I think there's something to it. The main reason why I think it all converges, and it goes back to the occult. And the occult is just one avenue into all these different mysteries, right? It's not the main thing that this show is about. But whether you like the man or not, and if some of you don't know who I'm talking about, Aleister Crowley, there's a show on right now called Strange Angel about him, or Jack Parsons and Crowley. But whether you like the man or not, he went into realms that most of us are afraid of and really dug deep into the soul through ritual, meditation, Buddhism. I mean, he tried it all. You name it. Psychedelics, altered states, some deep, heady stuff. And at the end of it all, he ends up invoking this being called Aiwass, right? And this is what really got me. Aiwass is a aeon of, it's like the aeon, and we're going to talk, I don't know too much about it. That's another thing we're going to talk about tomorrow night. But it's an entity that he invoked, the aeon of Horus, right? And if you read his book, the Book of the Law, this entity came through his girlfriend in the Egyptian pyramids, or the temple. I forget which temple he was in or which pyramid he was in, and was telling him that, you know, a new aeon is coming, and that it's, I pluck out the eyes of Jesus and all this other stuff. It sounded real crazy, but it was like a loving entity that was rebelling against the modern day religion. And the greatest law, which is what the OTO is about, is do what thou wilt, right? And that sounds crazy to a lot of people. Do what thou wilt. You know, that means, you're going to go around doing whatever you want. That's the most evilest stuff in the world. You're not concerned about anybody but your own will. But if you really study, instead of just judging it, right? If you really get in and look at what that is, they talk about how the divine will is really God's will. Because think about it. Like if any of you have children, don't you want your children to come into a happy life? Don't you want them to do what they love and, have abundance? And that's my will for my son. So I started understanding these things. But regardless, what kind of freaked me out was this being was telling him that this new aeon was coming, that we'd already went through the aeon of Isis, which is kind of like the Old Testament of the Bible. And then we went through the aeon of Osiris, which is like the New Testament of the Bible. And then Horus, which is the one we're in now. And I could be getting them confused, but that's fantastic, right? Because if you look at the mysteries, a lot of this stuff did come from Egypt and Samaria, and I think it got just interwoven into everything. At the top of it, though, he met this being called the Lamb, and you can look this up on the internet. It's Lamb, I think it's LAM, and it looks like a damn gray alien. Like he drew it, you know? And wow. Crowley wasn't out to find aliens. He didn't care about that stuff, right? I mean, he was out to become more spiritually enlightened through magic. He believed in magic was everything to him, and ended up at one of the tips of his work, at the very altered states of consciousness, ended up meeting a being that looks like an alien. And I thought, damn.
So there you go, full circle again.
Yeah, and if you read any of his books, this isn't a guy that's going to make stuff up and lie to you about things. Like he was kind of an arrogant ass, but he would always tell you the truth, And this guy met an alien. Now, whether the things are good or bad, or I don't know, but this alien was Aiwass, was there to help bring this message along, that we're all supposed to learn how to manifest our own will, but not in a selfish way. Like I can't go out and do what I want and have it interfere with what your will is, right? So they still protect. It still protects the other person, but they made a religion out of it, and that's what kind of freaked me out a little bit too. So the Thelema is a religion. Their whole religion is based on this thing, an entity that was channeled, and when you draw it, like there's an alien there. Come on, I mean, you can give me all this Zachariah Stitchin stuff all day long. That's a great story, but I believe Crowley's story more, and I believe Whitley Strieber's story. So I think every bit of this that we talk about is interwoven. I believe it's interwoven, but I just don't believe we understand it. I don't think we know, because half of the public is out there saying that these beings and entities are evil, and the other half are saying that they're here to guide us into ascension, you know? And
right.
It's, if you really get into this stuff and you really start searching for these beings and entities and opening doors up, whether you want to or not, I'm telling you firsthand, you need to protect yourself. You need to be cautious about it, but not because it's dangerous. It's definitely dangerous, but because you don't know. I mean, you don't jump in a pool of water that you've never seen before without asking what's in it. Like, right. You know what I mean? I've never went swimming in anything that I didn't kind of test out what was in the water.
Is that a log or an alligator?
Well, you know what I mean? It's like,
right.
We don't protect ourselves. We do these things. We've got people doing stuff where I think that they should really slow down before they try to do these things. There's YouTube channels 100% dedicated to invoking demons. And one of these days, I know it's going to freak some of y'all out, but I'd like to talk to like E.A. Koetting and some of those black magicians and try to understand where they're coming from. Because I think we can learn from everybody, but I still think we should be careful if we're going to look into this. If you come through the alien avenue, the haunting or paranormal avenue, the occult, even conspiracy, when you start digging, you should be careful. That's what I think. And I think you should learn how to protect yourself.
Oh, I agree. Here's the funny thing. Horus is actually a card that came up yesterday.
Oh, boy.
And Horus is called the Cosmic Gateway. And this ties it all together tonight. Your thoughts are magnetic and powerful. Miraculous changes are occurring. And then that's the caption, but it goes in more in depth. But yeah, I think that is the next level. So if we keep fighting about it, we're not going to make it. That came from
Aleister Crowley, of all people.
Wow.
A lot of people I talk to have never read his work. And the reason why, like the discussion we had an hour earlier, about how there's still things I'm afraid to talk about because of judgments. Others are too. But until you actually start at the beginning and read his work, you're not going to know. It's easy to judge. It's like when people talk about Freemasonry and stuff. It's mysterious because they're telling secrets and they dress up in tuxedos and do rituals, and they've got to be running the world because this guy's a Freemason and that guy's a Freemason. But until you've went into the lodge, actually went through some of the processes, sat down, talked to these guys, looked at what they were doing, really had some deep discussions with them, really had some deep experiences with them, all you're doing, you just have a judgment about something that you know nothing about. And that's what I've said since the beginning of the show is experience is your ultimate truth. It's your ultimate truth. You know more based on your experience than you do judgments, reading, anything.
Well, but people don't have time to do that anymore. That's why they do listen to something like this, or that's why, what's his name? Jordan Maxwell. That's why he goes and tries to call what he can out. Well, does he have an agenda? I don't know, but he's actually digging into a lot of this stuff that we don't have time to dig into.
You know what? I love Jordan Maxwell to death, and a lot of people have asked why I hadn't had him back on the show. Jordan's, he's getting old. He's getting older. You can tell he's kind of frustrated of saying the same stuff over and over again. But besides all that, I love Jordan to death, and he's really helped us look into things and open doors for people. But at the end of the day, his biggest message is you think you know, but you don't know, right? And he'll say it 4 or 5 times, and I'm like, okay, well, we're already there. So, he learned a lot of these mysteries, and he learned about the metaphor, and that there's some type of programming going on and all this stuff, and that these planets and all these symbols and metaphysics and all this stuff corresponds with this. But when you get down to the deep questions, and I've asked him a couple of those, like, is it bad to study the mysteries or learn these things, or is it evil? What is it that we don't know that you're talking about, right? And there is no answer for that, because I really believe that all he did was just study the knowledge. Instead of making a judgment, he just went in and studied all the knowledge he could. But at the end of the day, he still doesn't know the answers to those questions, because I really believe you have to have an experience to know those things. That has to be through experience only.
That makes sense.
You know, kind of like the guys that come on here and they talk about their DMT breakthrough experiences. They can't explain it, but they know there's some deep hidden truth there. Or, you know, they know that some of them believe in God now, or they never believed in God before because of the experience they had. Just stuff like that, you know. I'm not trying to knock Jordan. I ain't knocking him at all. He's done so much for this community. And it's just, when it comes to the big questions, he's asking the same questions you and I are, Barbara.
So time to pass the baton to someone who can take the time and do that experience and that investigation.
Yeah. I think it has to do with all about being able to be effective explorers of consciousness. I think that's what we got to learn to be, right? And when it comes time, we're all going to have to be able to do these types of things. I don't know, but I try just about every night, or every time I get extra time. I probably will tonight. I try to have a out-of-body experience, or I'll try to do it again just to see if I can get to that state. But it's like, I'm kind of jealous of people like Robert Monroe that can just do it on call, you know? I'm going to learn this tapping thing. Yeah, I'm going to learn this tapping thing. Maybe it'll help me.
Well, if you get traumatized by it, we'll tap that away. How's that?
Absolutely, yeah. And listen, thanks for, this has been a relief, actually, because talking to you, there's no pressure. I've got no pressure to get certain answers out or anything. It's just been a real fun conversation. I've really enjoyed talking to you.
I have too. Thank you so much. I've really been looking forward to it.
Hope your husband doesn't want to kill me. I kept you up all night.
No, he's probably asleep out there with all the dogs arranged around him.
Yeah. But yeah, we got to get out of here and listen, Barbara. Thanks again. By the way, before we do, where can everybody find you again? Just one more time if they want to get some help.
Email is barb.eftedwardfranktom@gmail.com, or Metaphorical Archaeology LLC on Facebook, and you can email me there.
Right on. And you guys also don't forget, you're very welcome. Very welcome, Barbara. Thank you. And you guys don't forget, tomorrow night we're going to be talking to Ramsey Dukes, and we're going to be discussing magic, the occult, egregores, Abramel and the Mage. What's all that about? It's going to be, I've already talked to him on the phone for a little bit. Fascinating guy, very intelligent, very well-mannered guy, and he knows his stuff. A little bit of chaos magic talk, too. And don't forget, the show is produced by the Fringe FM. Please don't copy without written permission. Music was by Chronox, Bundy, Kevin MacLeod, and Space Station. Stay tuned for The Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable. Good night.
Look out, stomach, here she comes. I have another drink on me. Gurgle, 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 gurgle. Gurgle, 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 gurgle. Tickle, 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 tickle. Slice of cheese and bite of pickle. Doesn't even cost a nickel now.